across Nigeria, Africa, and the rest of the world.
I have received reports of some people trying to introduce some commodities.
The interest of the political party, aligns with that of the members.
Fabio was my colleague in the State Assembly, contrary to our expectations.
Join Stephen Imediego and Nabila Usman every weekday from 5:30 a.m. to 10 a.m.
Only on Radio Now 95.3 FM, Lagos.
In order to keep up with our culture of excellence and continue to bring you the very best of radio programming, we invite you, our dear esteemed listener, to share your concerns with us on any of our content and or broadcast practices that you consider unsatisfactory. You can reach us via WhatsApp on 0809 682 2595. That is 0809 682 2595. This is for us to get your feedback on our efforts to continue to build and maintain our relationship with you and also to serve you better. Thank you for choosing Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos.
Stay tuned to your Beyond the News station daily for our up-to-the-minute compact news bulletins from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., 4 p.m. and 6 p.m., bringing you a wide range of local and international news from our news desk. Stay informed, stay updated on Radio Now 95.3 FM.
This is Now Breakfast.
Good morning. This is your daily security watch on Now Breakfast.
On Security Watch this morning, Deputy Senate President Barau Jibrin says that Nigeria's security challenges are enormous, though not insurmountable. He was speaking at a ceremony at the Federal University Dutsinma in Katsina State last weekend. The lawmaker noted that innovative domestic and regional interventions can dismantle what he described as the lethal web of intersecting threats facing Nigeria's security. The Deputy Senate President also noted that lawmakers are on the same page with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in addressing Nigeria's security challenges.
Elsewhere on Security Watch, the Imo State Police Command has paraded men suspected to be members of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra and its affiliated Eastern Security Network. The suspects who were paraded are accused of killing a divisional police officer and an inspector at Ahiazu-Mbise local government area of the state. In a statement yesterday, the Commissioner of Police, Denjuma Aboki, says the investigation into the killings also led to the recovery of rifles, rounds of ammunition, and a number of vehicles. And that's Security Watch this morning, but stay with us, there are more conversations on the way.
Good morning. This is your daily Security Watch on Now Breakfast.
Every second and every minute, something new happens. The news breaks.
People at a spot and angry mob decided to bomb.
Everyone wants to share it, but not everyone wants to dig deep. Now that's where we come in. We bring you the news and go beyond with in-depth conversations and analysis with stakeholders.
I honestly think that the federal government on its own part has broken.
If voters or more people want to be part of that decision-making process, they need to be part of it.
It is not a good measure of development anyways. We are not there yet. We need to counter the narrative of the fact that our vote does not count. If your vote does not count.
We bring you the story within the story. And that's what makes us tick. We are Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos, and we go beyond the news.
You're listening to Now Breakfast. From the north to the south, real people.
So like I said to you, it's some serious elements of the outgoing issue of my party whose tenure elapsed, who are pleading with me to endorse an illegal extension, and I refuse to be a part of any illegality.
Real stories every morning.
Most of the IDP, they stay in schools. And once they move in schools, when there is a disaster, the school in that area is automatically shut down.
This is Today in the News on Now Breakfast.
Local government elections in Ekiti were held over the weekend, and the final tally has given all 16 local government areas to the governing All Progressives Congress APC. Every chairmanship seat and councillorship seat was won by the APC, despite the presence of 12 other parties that competed in the exercise. Worthy of note were reports of low voter turnout and the absence of the People's Democratic Party from the race. For more on this, Henry Adewale, a journalist based in Ekiti, joins us this morning. Good morning, Mr. Adewale. Welcome to the conversation.
Yes, good morning.
It's a pleasure to have you on. So let's start off with the general reaction to APC winning the sweeping victory of the ruling party.
Pardon?
Give us a sense of the reactions to the announcement that APC won all 16 local government areas.
Well, good morning, listeners at home. Let me quickly say this. The State Independent Electoral Commission in Ekiti made the announcement yesterday that elections into the 16 local government areas, councillorship, chairmanship, just name it, has been won by the APC. I'm not sure there is anything to celebrate, because Saturday was a day few voters participated in election in the absence of the People's Democratic Party. The PDP had boycotted the election, citing the lack of trust in the electoral umpire in Ekiti State. They claimed members of the electoral umpire in the state are card-carrying members of the APC. And by virtue of that, there is no way they will participate in that election.
Is there any validity to their claims?
Well, I had that same question, and they said that they have every fact to prove that two members of the electoral umpire, the state electoral commission, card-carrying members of the APC.
And was there any point where the commission came out to debunk this?
No.
This then takes me to the reaction of the people themselves. So you mentioned the other parties, and we'll come to them in a moment. But the people of Ekiti, we understand that there was low turnout at the exercise. What exactly happened?
Well, in an election where there is no contest, what do you expect?
I mean, it's debatable to say there's no contest.
Why the electoral umpire claimed other parties participated in the election? The Labour Party, the Zenith Labour Party, the Accord Party, the AA Action Alliance, and some other parties participated in the election. I live right here in Ado Ekiti, and on Saturday I visited at least 6 local government areas in Ekiti State. And I can confirm to you that there was no party agent from other political parties anywhere within the state. I think a person contesting an election will have party agents at the polling booth. I saw none. I can also confirm to you that while moving around Ekiti State, I saw no even posters of other political parties participating in this election. At least candidates would make posters as a form of campaign, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was none across Ekiti State. Anyone that has a counterclaim should bring it out. So these are areas we begin to ask questions as to the validity of the claim of the State Independent Electoral Commission that other political parties participated in this election.
And
if you are claiming other parties participated, at least those candidates to campaign as well.
So, Mr. Adewale, this brings me, on the one hand, you mentioned these issues with this electoral process, very salient, very important issues. But I also come back to the importance of the fact that the elections held in the first place, right? Whether we want to call them elections or not. Is that something significant in the Ekiti context?
Pardon me? I don't understand your question, please.
We have states where local government elections do not hold. Governors have a tendency to make appointments instead into those positions. In Ekiti, we had elections, no matter what you want to say about the exercise. So I'm asking about how significant it is that these elections held in the first place.
Well, very significant. Permit you to say that in the last 5-6 years, Ekiti is one of the states where local government election has been held consistently. Ekiti has been very consistent in holding its local government election. I think the earliest we have the election used to be the local government chairman in the Ekiti state had a tenure of 2 years. But I think just last year, the state House of Assembly extended that to 3 years. So those ones that have just been elected now will be the first set of chairmen and councillors that will spend 3 years in the saddle. But that has been very consistent with the state, very significant. It's also, I think it is also one of those states where you don't begin to have this issue of a governor sacking the executives of the local government and they are taken to court. It happened a very long time in it. So it's very, very significant, and it also tells us that the state government has huge respect for the administration of the local government.
Well, Mr. Adewale, I want to say thank you for joining us this morning to discuss this important issue. We appreciate your thoughts and your time. Mr. Henry Adewale is a journalist based in Ekiti State, speaking to us on the conclusion of local government elections in the state. All 16 LGAs were won by the All Progressives Congress, which is the governing party in the state at the moment.
We are intentional about the stories we tell and the language we use in telling them.
Intentional about the people we speak to and why we speak to them.
Because here at Radio Now 95.3 FM, we aren't just telling any story.
We are telling your story.
And your story is all that matters.
Stay tuned to your Beyond the News station daily for our up-to-the-minute compact news bulletins from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., 4 p.m. and 6 p.m., bringing you a wide range of local and international news from our news desk. Stay informed, stay updated on Radio Now 95.3 FM.
Connect with us now via our social media channels. Facebook.com/RadioNow953FM.
We're on Twitter too. Connect with us there and get involved.
At Radio Now 953FM. 953FM. Like what we do? Share it on your socials and tell everyone.
Want to see some more of us? Head over and meet us on Instagram
at Radio Now 953FM. Get in touch. We'd love to hear from you.
Stay tuned to your Beyond the News station daily for our up-to-the-minute compact news bulletins from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., 4 p.m. and 6 p.m., bringing you a wide range of local and international news from our news desk. Stay informed, stay updated on Radio Now 95.3 FM.
We are intentional about the stories we tell and the language we use in telling them.
Intentional about the people we speak to and why we speak to them.
Because here at Radio Now 95.3 FM, we aren't just telling any story.
We are telling your story.
And your story is all that matters.
This is Now Breakfast.
You're welcome back into it. And this morning, a federal high court sitting in Abuja Big about it. The Federal High Court sitting in Abuja has changed the course of the conversation around the elections in that particular state. It has seen the removal of Governor Abba Kabir Yusuf and the declaration that he should pay federal lawmaker Al Hassan Doguwa the sum of 25 million naira for causing him psychological pain and damage. The order is part of the aftermath of the governor's request for a review of the state's attorney general's legal advice on the murder allegations against the lawmaker. Representative Doguwa was arrested on the 28th of February after being accused of leading thugs to set fire to the secretariat of the new Nigeria People's Party NNPP in Kano State, which led to the death of 2 persons. Now, the charges against him were dropped by the prosecuting team for lack of sufficient evidence. To get a better sense of the reactions to this judgment in Kano State, we are joined by Kabir Sufi, a public affairs analyst based in Kano. Good morning, Kabir. So my first question is, how do you react to this ruling?
Well, I think, like most people, I wasn't aware of the fact that Honorable Doguwa has gone to court the second time, also trying to enforce his fundamental human rights. And I think many people were not aware. Many people thought that after the judgment of the initial judgment, that exonerated him. Many people thought that the case was over, though people were aware of the fact that the state government, through the Attorney General, have indicated interest in reviewing the case, especially since he was cleared by the former government. Now that there is a new government in power, they have indicated the interest, but actually many people were not aware. So when the judgment came, it was when many people took interest in the case again, and I tried to see what actually happened. That was when people now tried to get to the facts of the matter and to see what really happened in the courts and why the judgment. So like many people, I personally wasn't aware of the fact that he has gone back to court for the enforcement of his fundamental human rights, and then of course for him getting a judgment in his favor.
What does this mean for the governor, who seems to be struggling politically?
Well, I think of course there may be appeal in this case if the government is still interested in pursuing the case. So isn't really a political case directly, in the sense that it is not about election matter. But then people are saying that yes, it is a political case because this is a case that has been established. Everything has taken place. Of course, he has been arrested, taken to prison, granted bail, 500 million naira bail, and then he went to court and he sought for them. And then, of course, the FIR couldn't establish the culpable homicide case against him, and as such, he was released when he went to court seeking for the enforcement of his fundamental human rights by, of course, the APC, the APC government that left power. So, of course, with the coming of the NNPP government, and they now indicated interest to bring back the case, many people are saying that indication of interest to bring back the case and to investigate him and what have you is really a political case. So I don't think it's add much to the struggle of the governor, though nobody wants in any way to lose any case directly or indirectly. But I don't think that is a very big burden on the part of the governor, considering the fact that he has a more important case in court. That I think this is something, by the way, the governor may not really be bothered much about the judgment in favor of Doguwa. And so I think the governor will rather face his the election matter that has gone to the Supreme Court, rather than be distracted by the case against Honorable Dogwa.
All right, Kabir, what does this mean for the NNPP and the APC in Kano State?
Well, since it has taken this dimension, and then the fact that the judgment has been publicized, I think it has given cause for concern for the two political parties, APC and NNPP. One, NNPP is now worried that the political, the cases of election, and then even these cases that somehow can be tied to politics have not been favoring the NNPP led government of Kano. And then in the other hand, the APC can be maybe hopeful of more victories, though it has also suffered some losses in the Court of Appeal, especially cases that they were hopeful on, such as the Kuramodobiga, Rumalang, House of Reps seats and what have you. So I think it has only added to the hopes and the anxiety of the two political parties. The NNPP may now be more anxious to see that it has secured more judgments in its favor. And then the APC also will be hopeful that they might still get some more cases in their favor. Well, I think not in the case of, not related to the case of Dogwa. If you're talking about whether APC is staging a comeback, I don't think the case of Honorable Dogwa is an indicator of whether APC is coming back. But yes, the APC is hopeful and was hopeful, of course, with the so many House of Reps seats that went to the Court of Appeal, though they couldn't get some of the judgments in their favor. But then what happened in the Court of Appeal and, of course, in the Election Tribunal with regard to the Kano governorship election has raised the hope of APC. And so APC is hopeful that if it can get that big judgment in its favor, then it is staging a comeback. But then the NNPP too is wondering how that will strengthen the APC if you consider the fact that out of the 3 senators in Kano, 2 for NNPP and 1 is for APC. But in that case, APC is saying that they have a bigger senator in the person of the Deputy Senate President. So, of course, when you look at the calculation of the State House of Assembly, of course, NNPP has more members. And of course, the House of Reps members, NNPP has more members of the House of Reps than. But with all these things, APC is still hopeful that getting a judgment in their favor will mean a comeback, and a stronger comeback. And while the NNPP is still hopeful that it will also win and then maintain its dominance of Kano politics as it is. So. All things being equal, the two sides are really working hard on seeing that they have remained relevant and that they have remained in the lead. The ruling party will want to maintain its lead and its status quo, while the APC will really want to stage a comeback. So whether that is possible will remain to be seen in the coming months. Of course, one of the indicators may be the judgment, much awaited judgment of the Supreme Court.
That was Kabir Sufi, a public affairs analyst, speaking to us from Kano and the interpretations of the Federal High Court judgment that awarded some 25 million naira against the governor of Kano State.
And in a few minutes here on Now Breakfast, News Extra comes your way, where we take a look at COP28 conversations so far. Stick around.
This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.
Babes, now how much be sanitary pad for your area?
Omo, now play we been dey play before. Everybody wey dey this place wey be human being na pad dem dey buy take do period. She go bring her wrapper cut all her wrapper where she gets. They use the do period. This kind of nonsense be this.
Ijoma, see what you are saying to your fellow woman who is in need.
Now so they use clothes now. Abi we no go chop first.
Auntie Ijoma, what did my mommy ever do to you? It's not fair.
Now if a story be this, My Period, My Pride radio drama season 1. Now Sanitary Pad media campaign power up with support from MacArthur Foundation
and Radio Now 95.3 FM every Saturday at 10 a.m.
The Financial Services Regulation Coordinating Committee, FSRCC, in collaboration with the National Broadcasting Commission, NBC, wishes to draw the attention of the public to the activities of illegal financial operators, IFOs, which threaten public trust and the stability of the Nigerian financial system. The general public is hereby advised to refrain from dealing with unlicensed financial operators who deceive individuals with unrealistically high investment returns. Verify the licensing status of such schemes on this website: www.cbn.gov.ng, www.nicom.gov.ng, www.pencom.gov.ng, www.sec.gov.ng. To report any suspicions of illicit financial activities, call 0700 225 5226, 0800 225 5226, or +234 817 665 6273. Announcer, FSRCC.
The issues are all around us, but who talks about them? Law enforcement breaking the law, property owners ripping off tenants, political office holders taking the electorate for granted, or is it the plague of recurring bad policies made by the government? These are the issues. Let's talk about these and more at the Round Table. Stay locked on to Radio Now 95.3 FM every weekday as we discuss these hot topics around us on the Round Table on Now Express. The Round Table, weekdays 5:30 p.m.
Technology is constantly evolving and artificial intelligence is powering everything around us.
So for nations to continue to survive in the world where artificial intelligence is now everywhere around us, we must participate in governance structure in terms of how it is managed.
At Radio Now 95.3 FM, we're telling the story of the evolution of technology like nobody else can. Now that's another reason to listen to us.
Stay tuned to your Beyond the News station daily for our up-to-the-minute compact news bulletins from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., 4 p.m. and 6 p.m., bringing you a wide range of local and international news from our news desk. Stay informed, stay updated on Radio Now 95.3 FM.
This is Now Breakfast.
For every news story, there's more.
So we can write the best security architecture plan, but it remains an essay until it becomes manifest on ground.
More detail.
Every time you are doing reform, even when we were doing it 2006, 2007, the question is also that it's not the right time. When will be the right time?
More than just the headline. This is News Extra on Radio Now 95.3 FM.
The 28th United Nations Climate Change Conference, or COP28, enters its 5th day today. At the heart of this year's conversations is methane reduction, carbon dioxide reduction, energy transition plans and funds for the most vulnerable countries. Despite this outlook, there is a prevailing sense of lethargy in many parts of the world, caused by skepticism of how effective previous agreements have been and how serious governments across the world are in their net zero commitments. Jamaka Okafor is a foreign affairs correspondent with Premium Times who is attending COP28. We spoke to her this morning on the general atmosphere. She starts off with the reaction so far to the few days of deliberations.
So today is more or less the first day of the other things. Today is Monday, but this opened last Thursday, but it was all high-level speeches or conversations going on. No negotiations yet in the actual sense of negotiations. But I mean, there was the World Climate Action Summit, which is where world leaders came to talk about what their various countries were doing and what they're committing to, and also making pledges and promises on how to go forward around the entire climate change conversation. But what's been seen so far is the quick adoption of the operationalization of the loss and damage fund, which is meant to cater to particularly vulnerable developing countries. Well, that phrase remains vague, but I guess they will come up with a criteria on how to measure which countries qualified as vulnerable developing countries or particularly vulnerable.
Hi, Ms. Okafor, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, fantastic. So we'll come to the issue of the fund in just a minute, but how different is this year's meeting from COP27?
This year's meeting is different to the extent, like this fund, for instance, this is the first time in the history of COPs that an agenda is being adopted without going into negotiation, and on the very first day of the meeting. So the meeting is opened on Thursday, and a draft proposal that was submitted the night before on the eve of the opening by the COP president was adopted the very next day, the first day of the conference. And business as usual at COP will be that these things will go into negotiations, a lot back and forth, but that wasn't seen here. And I think just quickly chipping is that what that shows is that a lot of behind the scene conversations or negotiations, if you like, had happened before the opening of the session. I don't know what that signifies, but that remains to be seen in the next 2 weeks. So COP is until the 12th. Hopefully it ends on the 12th. So from now to 12, we'll see what that means ultimately. And then we've also seen the first... Yeah.
No, please go ahead.
Yeah. And this is also the first time that there's going to be a health day. And this is simple. It simply means that the world is beginning to realize that this climate crisis is also a health crisis. They're not distinct from each other. So while discussing politics, jargons, and finances and every other thing, we tend to neglect the health aspect of the entire climate crisis, and this COP is paying attention to that. Yesterday was the very first health day at COP, and it's significant. It's significant because even the malaria report by the WHO sometime last week, within the week, which was released, showed clearly that climate change was also contributing to the increase in malaria cases around the world. Pakistan had fivefold the number of cases it had compared to 2001 last year. So this is significant, and the world is starting to see the intersection and the connection between climate crisis and health crisis.
So I'd like us to explore the matter of the fund for a moment, right? The loss and damage fund. At the moment, I think pledges hit about $475 million or so. And, you noted that it was significant that, this started off COP28. Yet there are some who say that the pledges are lower than expected. Is that the sentiment you get over there? Can you explain to us what's going on in terms of perception to this?
Yeah, it's clear. So just a little backstory. The loss and damage funds were established last year in Egypt, COP27, and the operationalization was effected here as COP28. It's a new fund in quotes, right? And monies are beginning to enter into the pot. But of course, what is significant, I guess, which is what the argument about insufficient fund or the funds that are entering into that pot is low, is the fact that countries are not, the amount of money people expect developed countries to put into that fund is not coming in. But I would say, yes, this is a drop in the ocean. What's about $500 million that is in the pause as of now. People continue to pledge, but I guess that the expectation people have of countries to put in huge amount of money is not coming. But of course, people are speaking up, and even today there's going to be a demonstration for people saying, that fund should be, more than it is at the moment. It needs more, which is true, because then when you look at the whole loss and damage conversations, countries around the world, especially in the global south, who bear the brunt of climate change, the losses and damages that have happened to them as a result of this cannot, of course, be totally measured in monies in that sense. Right. I mean, money cannot bring back people who have died, but of course money can rebuild houses and
maybe rebuild lives to an extent. Right.
Well, livelihood, not lives. Money can rebuild. Life is not a building, but livelihood would recover or be brought back to an extent. But life will never remain the same for people. But then, in the same vein, it's important to show sympathy towards people who are being affected by this, especially because the global south is not responsible for what's happening right now
as far as climate change is concerned. Ms. Okafor, I apologize for interrupting you, but let's bring this home to Africa. Yeah. Africa had its own climate summits months earlier. How much of the consensus from the Africa Climate Summit is evident at the COP28?
Well, I think the crux of the Africa Climate Summit was the fact that, leave no one behind, which is the mantra. And I think a part of it also touches the Beach Town initiative, which says, developed countries should, the loans and the grants should stand in for developing countries, and also not the loan scheme or the way for getting money from the World Bank, the IMF, and other financial institutions should not be in the way that developing countries have to choose between climate change and their development. So there needs to be, they need to put into consideration disaster conditions, or disaster clauses rather, into the borrowings and everything that's happening. And this conversation has continued to say, we don't want to choose between climate change and development. And we're leaving no one behind in the conversation. Also the conversation about just transition, to say, this is our reality and that's your reality, and when we're doing this, there has to be equity and inclusivity in all of the conversation. This features really, it features in the speeches we've heard from African heads of state. So I guess their resolve remains and is still strong from the Nairobi Declaration. Again, like I keep saying, what is left to be seen is the amount of action and political will that will follow all of this very.
And that was a News Extra with Chiamaka Okafor, the foreign affairs correspondent for Premium Times, speaking to us out of Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. COP28 goes on till the 12th of December and will bring you updates as they unfold. In just a few minutes, we've got the news review coming your way.
Every second and every minute, something new happens. The news breaks.
People at the spot, and angry mob decided to bomb.
Everyone wants to share it, but not everyone wants to dig deep. Now that's where we come in. We bring you the news and go beyond with in-depth conversations and analysis with stakeholders.
I honestly think that the federal government on its own part has broken.
If voters or more people want to be part of that decision-making process, they need to be part.
GDP is not a good measure of development anyways. We are not there yet. We need to counter the narrative of the fact that their vote does not count. If their vote does not count.
We bring you the story within the story. And that's what makes us tick. We are Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos, and we go beyond the news.
This is Now Breakfast.
Grab a seat, pour a cup of coffee, and join the conversation on Now Breakfast. Let's go beyond the news. Let's talk facts.
First and foremost, the government will never kowtow to the threat of any group to give it conditions.
Let's discuss your opinion.
The politicians in Nigeria don't understand the principle of politics.
The day's biggest news stories.
IPOB has been covered in themselves in glory. There is nothing special about them. It's like a witch cried at night and the child died falling money.
This is the news review on Now Breakfast.
Welcome back. It's the News Review here on Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos. My name's Nabila Osman. Today's Monday, the 4th of December, and in the studio is...
Stephen Imediegu.
Sorry, you say?
Stephen Imediegu.
You say?
I said Stephen Imediegu.
And with that is introducing to you the new lineup on Now Breakfast. It's more than a pleasure to have the next foreseeable future to disturb and threaten and do all the... Did I say threaten? And be nice to Stephen. But yes, just so we can bring in somebody else in on the fun, we've got Radio Now's Camry Apollo in the studio. Hi, Camry. Good morning.
Good morning, Nabila. Morning, Stephen. Morning, listener.
Morning, Camry.
Good to have you. Good to have you in the studio, Camry. Let's talk about your weekend. What caught your attention?
Money.
You know, every time I ask you that question, you've got this look on your face, like you're smiling. You know the question is coming and you're just looking forward to... So money, what kind of money? 13.8 billion naira?
Actually, a lot more than that. Talking about over $1 trillion that leaves the shores of this country because of how much we spend on education. It was the report that came out from the US consulate that so far this year they had interviewed 150,000 people. That's 150,000 people looking to go to the United States of America. These people, 150,000 of them, have paid visa application fees. Now, for the uninformed, the application fees is $185 thereabouts. All right, that's for your typical tourist visa. And if you multiply that, I did a bit of quick mathematics. I wish I didn't, but I did some mathematics. So 150,000 people paying the US government $185 for a visa interview. Using yesterday's black market exchange rate of, I average it out 1,100 naira to the dollar.
It's like 1,155 naira thereabouts.
Yeah, so let's just round it down, 1,100. Let's be generous. And if you do the mathematics, what it does is $185 times 150,000 people is, first of all, $27,750,000. That's what we've paid the US government for a form that says, I'd like to go to your country. So far this year, you've still got another month to go. I'll break it down further. So that's $27.7 million US in application fees alone for people looking to go to America. Out of that number, you've got 30,000 of them that are students. So do the mathematics. How much is this in naira? It's 30 billion, or rather 30.5 billion naira. So far, that's what we have paid to the US consulate to go visit their country. Whoever said tourism is not good business. This is just, asking permission. Yeah. I'd like to come to your country, and knowing fully well I might be rejected. So this is how much we have paid. Let's break it down a bit further. I asked myself, all right, so what's this doing for us frequency-wise? Because I'm a numbers person. I'd like to get a real perspective on what I'm doing. So 150,000 people paying, again, 30.5 billion per annum. This works out at 2.7 billion we pay to the US government every month. That's how much the US consulate generates in visa fees, 2.7 billion naira every month. This is the US consulate. Now, this works out at 13,636 applications every month. So far, this is what the numbers is telling us. Or, if you want to break it down further, that's 454 people pay the US government $185 every single day. 454. That's a lot of people. Seriously. Or, if you want to break it down, that's 18 people an hour. Or, go further, that's 3 people every minute, or 1 person every 20 seconds is paying the US government $185 because we want to go to their country for tourism and education.
You know what would make it more fun? These numbers you reeled out. If we knew how many of them were ejected every minute.
I was going to say that we're not paying because we want to go to their country. We're paying to explain why we should come to their country. We're paying for a conversation. And
that's it.
That is a lot more money than Nabila proposed I retire with to my village in Isukwato this morning. It's
all right, I'll tell you what, Stephen. Let's push further and have a look at how much we spend on education. How much do we spend on education? Well, in April 2022, the Academic Staff Union of Universities, that's ASU, says that Nigerians spent 1.6 trillion naira paying school fees abroad. Not talking about living costs, transportation, shopping, this, that, the other. This is just school fees. 1.6 trillion naira. The CBN in 2022 said that we spent 1.38 billion US dollars on foreign education. 1.38 billion US dollars on foreign education. That's what the CBN says we paid. And this is in 2022. In 2021, it was much higher. In 2021, we paid 1.8 billion US dollars on education. So I'm thinking to myself, all of this is monies that should be going into the Nigerian system if we sorted ourselves. Or a significant amount of this should go into our system. But no, it's going out of the country because people want better schools, want better shopping experiences, want better holiday experiences, whatever it is, they want better, and it's out there, and this is how much they're paying. Trillions every year. They're just taking it out of the country. It's amazing.
You know, I think we've got, in the first instance, we've got the money that we spend explaining to the US government why we want to visit their countries, just about enough money to, I believe, complete the cultural center that Mr. Nyesom Wike was speaking about just last week. So perhaps we should reconsider our priorities. It's a lot of money, and then going out on a daily basis, it gives me a headache.
Stephen, think about it. Every 20 seconds, somebody goes to find $185, a Nigerian, and goes to the US consulate and says, here, have this money, give me a piece of paper, which I know fully well you might reject my request to go visit your country. Every 20 seconds, $185. It's mind-boggling.
I suspect you're trying to make me bang my head against the wall. Good thing that there's none close enough, because it is frustrating to think about how much money we lose on a daily basis to a country that is doing very well for themselves, especially as our government was talking about having the universities in Nigeria start to pay back all the years of support that the government has been giving them. So it's a lot to think about. There are lots of figures here.
I mean, look, guys, I hear you on this conversation, and I think in some ways they can be mutually exclusive in terms of quality of education versus the amount of money that leaves the country because people want to go seek education elsewhere. Right? So you could have the best of systems, and this number of people with this amount of money could still be going out simply because it's more than just an education. In a global society, it's important to, have an experience of the outside world, whatever that is. Of course, there are questions around, okay, you could go to Benin Republic and have an experience of that outside world,
of
right?
Course.
You could go to New Zealand and have an experience of that outside world. It's not just about Canada, the US, the UK. And we're not the only society that does this.
Of course.
In New Zealand itself, I recently discovered that people who graduate after their first degree, they have something called OE, which is overseas experience. It's a standard for them. They leave the country to the UK, the US, do like a year or 2 years, and then they return to their country.
I agree with you, Nabila, and I think we should, beg your pardon, I think we need to build our education system to accommodate for that at much lower levels, like secondary school, where it will make bigger impacts, because these are the formative years of a person. In my secondary school, we had lots of exchange students. My favorite were the Scandinavians, because it was a totally different experience for them. Their schooling structure is a bit loose, especially from the early years. They focus more on creative development as opposed to reading, writing, arithmetic.
No exams, all of those things.
There you go. So it's very important for global integration, understanding, to broaden our horizons and so on. I absolutely agree. But looking at our situation, given the fact that a lot of people are even going across the border to Benin Republic to go to a university, whereas we had great names. We have great names like University College Ibadan, Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, and so on and so forth. These are universities that were known around the world, but now, alas, the standards and the quality of education is not what it was before. And look, I've heard people in the white-collar services, let's say the financial sector, for example. I've got lots of friends who have gone to get a master's abroad. They couldn't afford it, but they saved and begged relatives and so on, simply because they felt, look, to give ourselves an edge in this highly competitive, very small markets of what they do, to give themselves an edge, they thought, I'd rather invest in a foreign education, come back, it'll give me an edge over my competitors in securing a job in the financial services sector. So there are all these things to consider.
Yes, but and while I agree with you, I think that I get the feeling that sometimes our focus is so much on the Western world that we forget that we are Africans and we do have African problems that need African solutions here on the African continent. I feel I would be better served by spending a year or two, if I can afford it, touring an African nation, especially an African nation that speaks a different language from mine. We have Francophone nations on the African continent. We've got countries in Africa that speak Portuguese. So wouldn't it be more beneficial to say I'm going to study in any of these other schools, Benin Republic, South Africa? It gives you the international exposure on the one hand, it exposes you to a second language on the other hand, and it gives you an idea of how African countries can work. Because at the end of the day, when you go to the US, to the UK, to Canada, you still come back to Africa, you still come back to Nigeria to live and work here.
I think it's worth saying that there's also the flip side of this conversation. So I try to pull up the figures very quickly, and the latest is from it's outdated, it's 2016, but over 5.2 million people entered Nigeria in 2016, right? Foreigners came to our country for some reason or the other. And we will get into, other conversations on the news review a little more after the headlines. If you're just joining us, a big welcome to you. This is Now Breakfast on Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos. My name's Nabila Usman, here with Stephen Imediegu, and our guest in the studio is Camry Apollo. Stick around.
Connect with us now via our social media channels. Facebook.com/RadioNow953FM.
We're on Twitter too. Connect with us there and get involved.
At Radio Now 953FM. 953FM. Like what we do? Share it on your socials and tell everyone.
Want to see some more of us? Head over and meet us on Instagram
at Radio Now 953FM. Get in touch. We'd love to hear from you. Across Nigeria, Africa, and the world. This is Radio Now News.
In the headlines this morning, first in local news, Lagos police arrest suspected cultist with weapons charms. Julius Berger hands over second Niger bridge to federal government. Nigeria calls for Niger junta to free ousted President Mahmoud Bazoum. Developed countries must compensate Africa for carbon emissions, says Senator Ibrahim. In business and economy, FIRS cancels penalties interests on pending tax liabilities. In showbiz and entertainment, Spotify announces Rema Asake as Afrobeats global ambassadors. On the foreign scene, Sierra Leone president calls for respect of law after failed coup. And in sports, Nigerian female soldier wins gold at World Military Wrestling Championship. These are your 8 a.m. headlines here on Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos. I am Nabila Usman. Thank you for listening. The news review continues shortly. Do stay tuned.
This is Radio Now News.
This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.
This is Now Breakfast.
Grab a seat, pour a cup of coffee, and join the conversation on Now Breakfast. Let's go beyond the news. Let's talk facts.
First and foremost, the government will never kowtow to the threat of any group to give it conditions.
Let's discuss your opinion.
The politicians in Nigeria don't understand the principle of politics.
Today's biggest news stories.
IPOB has been covered in themselves in glory. There is nothing special about them. It's like a witch cried at night and the child died early morning.
This is the news review on Now Breakfast.
You're welcome back into it. It is the news review. My name is Stephen Imediegu. I'm here with Nabila Usman, and Radio Now's Camry Apollo joins us. His eye was caught this weekend by figures. Camry, I'd like to direct you to some figures on the front of the Daily Trust newspapers this morning. Outrage over Nigeria's 1,411 delegates to COP28 summit. I don't know how that number hits you, but I think it puts us as the second largest number of delegates to this year's summit. We have had explanations from our government as regards why this number is necessary, the number of deals that have to be made, number of conversations, and the number of key players. While on the one hand, there's the argument that we are in a time when we should be spending less, especially when it comes to running our government. There is also the counter argument that we need to invest in the people that we have, especially as almost every facet of the Nigerian experience needs more investment, needs better minds, needs a lot more cooperation. So there's that argument to offer as well. If you say we are taking too many people, there are lots of conversations to be had. Climate change affects us in different ways. Speaking of figures as well, we've also got on the bottom of the Daily Trust newspapers, beg your pardon, Camry. Just before we move to the bottom of the Daily Trust newspapers, 1,411 delegates. What is your reaction to this?
My reaction is, first of all, we need to put out the messaging as we understand it to the public. Now, first of all, 1,411 people from Nigeria attended COP28. I think that's the best way to frame that message, because when we just say delegates like that, then people will start to believe that the federal government paid for 1,411 people to go to Dubai for COP28, which is not the case. The presidency has come out and explained and said, look, a lot of these people are private sector individuals that sponsor themselves for their own reasons and so on and so forth. And if you look further, because I took the time to go to the websites to find out how these things work, that is, beg your pardon, how the information of the attendees are captured and so on and so forth. And as it turns out, as an attendee, you are recorded against the country you are from. Don't forget, this is a global conversation, so it affects the entire world. So I guess it's probably, I don't know why, I haven't had an opportunity to ask the organizers. Maybe it's their way of keeping track on public interest, public interaction from around the world by country, because it's a country conversation, isn't it? Yes. Countries are expected to make certain commitments and promises, so maybe that's the way. I don't know, but 1,411 people, and we are the joint third largest delegation. I believe the largest was the UAE itself,
yes.
Followed by China, is it?
No, we are third with China.
With
I
China,
think it was
yes.
either Argentina or Brazil.
There you go. So it's difficult at this point. I think the federal government ought to come out and say, look, these are the number of people we have used your tax naira to sponsor to go and attend COP28, and then they can give us a reason why. That's the first thing they ought to do, instead of allowing the speculation, because the figures, I'm not clear how many are funded by the federal government, how many funded themselves, and so on. So that opacity has opened up the door for a lot of conjecture, speculation, and suspicion, which you might argue is justified, because don't forget, we've just come out of a conversation where we've seen the government. When I say the government, I'll talk about one arm specifically. They've insisted on spending easily over 150 to 170 million naira purchasing vehicles in an economy where we are told we are bankrupt by the National Security Advisor. So yes, that suspicion is justified.
Well, in this particular case, the government, the presidency has said that they sponsored less than 100 people to Dubai this year. But
and I think it's worth saying that's the presidency. But yes, there's this perception as if other government agencies are not still government.
That's it.
They say that, there's a big question. So every other agency that attended, for what reason are they attending? How many people did they carry? Because that's still taxpayers' money.
Right.
NNPC is not the presidency. It is NNPC. It's the Ministry of Petroleum Resources.
Well,
and they are a big feature in these conversations. You're talking about energy.
Right. And with the People's Democratic Party is demanding the National Assembly investigate the delegation this year. We're going to keep an eye on that particular story. Camry, it appears the U.S. Embassy wants to add a correction. They said they've interviewed some 180,000 Nigerians this year.
So the numbers are even higher. It's not 150,000. Okay, yeah, so that's 150,000 plus 30,000 students, making it 180,000. Maybe that's where the number adds up.
All right, well,
yes,
that is the case. But still talking about education and one of the problems we have, the Daily Trust carries this headline: 3 months after, no dew on whereabouts of abducted Zamfara University students. It's become almost a daily headline, if you like, in Nigeria, where we have one form of criminality or the other that sees people, either students, farmers, women, men, being kidnapped by bandits and people carrying guns who are not licensed to carry those guns, moving about and kidnapping people. And Zamfara has been at the center of a number of these stories. There was a conversation a while back about women who had been kidnapped for 6 months on end with no end in sight to their kidnapping, the threats from their kidnappers to marry them off if ransom is not paid. Perhaps this is the reason why we have some 30,000 students wanting to leave Nigeria to go school in the United States, because they are concerned about finishing their university education, discounting strikes. They also want to finish without having to spend some time with kidnappers and fund the kidnappers as well.
So just before we get into the nitty-gritty on that, if you're listening and you have thoughts on the conversation so far, join us. 0913 5000 953. Again, that's 0913 5000 953 and 0901 1111953. That's 0901 1111953 on WhatsApp 0809 682 2595. One more time, 0809 682 2595. Dr. Paul, a big good morning to you.
Nabila,
hi,
welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Paul. It's good to hear from you.
Thank God for your divine health.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, I'm flattered that we are back. Steve, Monday, you're there.
Good morning, Dr. Paul.
Yes, it doesn't matter the number of delegates to that contest. The issue there, or the question to ask, the men or telling question to ask, at the end, what will be the outcome of this Sunday? Government is telling you that they didn't sponsor all of them, that some come from private sector. They should tell us the number from government. But that was not possible. So there's other countries that come with 1,000 delegates. Some say, no, we are going to join the competition via Zoom, that the economy is in bad shape, and so on. I don't know when we are going to have a leader that has such a thought, that when the economy is in a bad or a parlor state, that I don't believe in spending. Or is it larger the conference? The larger you draw from their country giant, something will happen soon. Because I don't get it. If you have about 5 people going there and so on, with the way the economy is now, we have to let loose. So I don't know how a country you claim that the economy is bleeding and you still going the way as if everything is all right. Steve, you are going to adulterate or lie how much these people are collecting as safety codes. You can see another platform this morning. We have that some of them are collecting $900, $1,000, and so on. We should go it and line it. Those in that conference, how much they are the extra code. Some people tell me they are going there to Christmas shopping. You see, my anger leaves it that after all these things, what come out from it? That's the question. Will it change all the situation happening in this country, environmental, gas, and so on?
Dr. Paul, if truly the commitments are made and there's follow through, it does have significant impact. So let's not take that away.
So you have been seeing such in this country? That's the question. So even Nabila, if Tinubu said that Nigerian economy, we cannot afford to go there, we're going to join the country via Zoom. We held let loose. I'm asking you, Nabila.
Yes, Dr. Paul.
We held let loose.
I plead the fifth.
Because they are telling you there's no money, you are collecting $700 and you remove subsidy, and I don't get it.
Dr. Paul, I hear you.
We have a lot of things here in this country.
True.
I don't know.
Valid points, Dr. Paul.
They're not valid. We have a lot of issues.
Dr. Paul, I hear you, and I apologize. Dr. Paul,
we are kidnapped on their way to Sokoto State.
Right.
And maybe release a lot of
All right,
issues.
Dr. Paul, we've got to leave it here.
I'm not happy the way the rascals spending all our funds.
Thank you very much, Dr. Paul. We hear you. Emmanuel joins us from Moniko. Emmanuel, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Oh, beautiful. Apollo, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you. Morning.
Oh, and Nabila, I've missed your voice. You're welcome back.
Thank you, Emmanuel. It's good to hear from you.
Yeah. Anyway, let me touch on the school matters. The quality of education matters a lot. So if Nigerians are spending such a huge amount of money for schools abroad, it shows that the government needs to actually do a new thing about the educational system. I went to part of my secondary school in Nigeria here, and as a matter of fact, I'm a Dukundant. I'm a proud member of Federal Government College, Warri. We have a very vibrant old student association. Aside from that, you see, as at the time I went to school, both government officials, generals, then were in the military regime, and the government officials were mostly generals or military officers, and even ministers. Their children were in the same school as me, and my father was not a general or a government or a big government official, so to say. So it was an opportunity. Those military schools were an opportunity where the rich, the poor, everybody, they came together and they lived as one. And I do believe that because I went to a unity school, that which I learned from there is what is keeping me till today. That's why I have Muslim friends who I don't identify as Muslims. I identify them as they are, a human being. I have Yoruba friends, I have Hausa friends, Fulani friends, all from different walks of life. So if the federal government is actually serious, they should invest heavily in human development and education being part of it. So let me not take much time. I believe other callers will call you.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Thank you, Emmanuel. Appreciate it. John is in Lekki. Hi, John. Good morning.
Hi, Nabila. You didn't go for a cup. I think so now. There you go.
Your village people were waiting for me at the airport. I had to turn around.
You went for.
See, John, you like trouble. It's too early. It's a Monday.
Let's focus. Ignore Nabila for a few minutes and talk to us.
You just came on this program, but we can vote to send you out.
John, please go ahead.
I beg you, will know how they went the COP. Are they still accepting applicants for the COP meeting? I don't mind going.
We'll hook you up.
Thank you. As an oil man, I think the whole thing about the COP for me is just, with all due respect, nonsensical. You want to go to the COP? Everybody flew private jets there. Everybody drove in petrol-powered cars there. What are we talking about? The country you went to is, or used to be, a very major oil producer. And one of their key things is that even we should consider oil and gas as part of the discussion. So please, what are we talking about? I'm an oil man. Oil is not going anywhere anytime soon. So we can cop all we want. Oil and gas is not going anywhere.
So then what's the answer?
The answer is this. What are we going to do now? If the COP announcement is that we should cut down on oil exploration and oil production, what happens to Nigeria?
I mean, I hear you, John, but there are still implications for us, whether or not you say oil is going nowhere. The European Union...
Fresh water.
Hold on.
The soil in my village is still good soil.
John...
In Nigeria, if you throw mango on the road and come back in 6 months, the mango tree will be there.
Right.
The people that have the problem of pollution are not in Africa.
No, John, true. I disagree. And I disagree on behalf of everybody who lives in Bayelsa State. I disagree on behalf of everybody who is in Port Harcourt. When was the last time you were in Port Harcourt? You can't breathe in Port Harcourt.
And in Bayelsa, those situations are a function of human error and the indecisiveness of government to move with the times.
But what is the source? What's the foundation of that error? Is it still oil and gas?
Is it not the same that they told us that a certain man stopped the ocean, and that's the reason why he was voted in? I remember when Victoria Island, I used to swim with my car in Victoria Island, I'm at the Bello Road. So why can't another person in Bayelsa stop the ocean?
I'm happy to hear that you know how to swim along with your car.
No, I don't know how to swim. My car could swim, not me.
John, you had best get to learning how to swim, especially because you're in Lekki. Thank you so much for speaking to us. We've got Ibeto joining us from Surulere. Ibeto, good morning this morning.
Oh, good morning, my brother. Good morning, Nabila.
Hi, Ibeto. Thank you.
Yes. Let me speak on the delegate.
Go ahead.
Yes, honestly, it makes me wondering if government continues to tell us that we are broke. I doubt it so much. Why do I ask so? Because look at this now, over 1,400
1,411. But it's not government that's paying for everybody. There are journalists there are CSOs there, they are paying their own way.
Yes, I know. But then if you consider all the amount of money that has left the country going by the number of people. $50 billion. You understand? So, both on government side and on the private sector side, we have money. In this, we have it. So let's them stop confusing us. You understand? It is for them. Well, what I expect our president, now he has gotten the power, he has finished with the court. Now I expect him to put on the blue light, the blue switch that will give us the light of the hope he placed. You understand? He placed us. So we are expecting him to work hard. All this, it is so baffling, honestly. I wish by the time, at the end of their trip, when they come back, Nigeria economy will be able to recover over $100 million at what they've gone there to spend. You understand? I hope you're looking at, you understand the area I'm looking at.
Ibeto, I hear you, but it's also important to put into context that dollar is not naira. If my pigeon were solid, I'd tell you dollar no be naira, so that it carries weight. When you talk about spending in dollars, you're not talking the billions like you refer to. It's more hundreds of thousands. That's when it becomes expensive. So just because in naira we're spending millions and billions for this trip does not mean that when you translate it to dollars, it then hits seven figures.
I quite agree with my sister. What I'm saying in essence is that how to revamp the economy. It's because I'm concerned about what you spend and what you get back. You understand? It doesn't. That's my area of concern. So I wish they would. Like I said, I'm really expecting our president to please put on this bill and give us the promise. So thank you, my. Thank
you, Beto. We appreciate it. Thank you so much. So, we come back to the conversations. We're going to hold off on calls for a few minutes, and we'll see how we can take maybe one more before we're done. But coming back, Camry, to the conversation Stephen raised on the whereabouts of these first students. For one, you look at that headline, it says no clue on whereabouts of abducted for varsity students. And this is 3 months after they were abducted, and they were not taken from campus, by the way. We need to come back to that. This is something we followed on Breakfast. They were taken from off-campus housing in an area not far from the university. But in many ways, Camry, it's not necessarily surprising, right, that their whereabouts are not known. When you're abducted, it comes with the territory. And even in cases where the whereabouts of abducted people are known, we've not always seen our security forces able to go in and extract them from that situation. But I wonder, again, I come back to the conversation on how this administration, whether they're taking security as seriously. The NSA a month ago or so was saying that security has improved in the 6 months plus that this administration has been in power.
I think it's a bit early to judge their efforts so far because security is a very complex thing. It's not a switch. And I wish the federal government would stop, feeding this angst that is brewing within people of saying, oh, this is ended, this is stopped, and this is changed, and so on and so forth. security's in a constant state of dynamism. The last administration, the mistake they made was President Buhari came out and said, "Oh well, we have." Beaten the terrorists to an extent.
Yeah, insurgency has come to an end.
Exactly. And the thing is, it changed to be something else, and it will change to be something else unless you get a grip on your country, intelligence, and embed your people and have the proper tools and mechanisms, and most importantly, committed individuals, especially at the higher levels, to take the right decisions when they're fed with information. So, again, public perception is a very powerful thing. Sometimes it doesn't align with reality, but it's a very, very powerful tool. And I think the government owes it to the people to pay attention, pay a bit more attention to what we feel as opposed to what they think they know or what they know. What's very important is what people think and feel. If you can't address that, then you're playing into the hands of the enemy. So if people feel the whole country is unsafe, then a responsible government, a responsive government, ought to do everything in its power to change that narrative. And you don't change a narrative with mere pronouncements. You go down and you get a lot of work done. Now, having said that, intelligence and security is a very tricky terrain, because when they are doing very well, when they are hard at work, we don't know. And we can't know, and we won't know. And we'll just take the boring day for granted. Then when a bomb goes off, when something bad happens, we suddenly latch onto them and start to ask some questions. Once in a while, one or two bad eggs will slip between the cracks. But to come out and say, oh, there's an improvement here, there's an improvement there, and then having people say things like, look, what are you talking about? Somebody was just kidnapped in this place, or somebody was killed in that place. It's not doing us any good at all. So I think they need to change their messaging. Focus more on results. For example, I'd like to see a president take a very tough stance. We saw Cameroon's government, this was, I think, about 2016. They gave chase of Boko Haram. When the terrorists abducted some of their people, they gave chase and rescued some of their people by engaging these terrorists in gunfights.
Right.
They lost some of their people, but they got some back, and they brought back the dead citizens. And the whole country mourns the dead, but a very strong message was sent to the terrorists that if you touch one of us, we're all coming after you. And I think that's the position the government needs to take. This is a sad situation. You know, the abduction of students and so on and so forth. It's an attack on the country in the future. You can undermine a country by unraveling the threads that hold it together. Education is one of the important threads that holds a country together. If people start feeling scared to go to school, especially in certain parts of the country, you are literally undermining the cohesiveness. You're undermining the future of the country even before it gets there.
So would it be possible to say that one way of measuring improvement would be to tackle insecurity in one particular area? Since 2012 and the conversation around the Chibok girls, we've still talked about it over and over again. We've seen repeated cases of students from various universities across the country, I'm talking Southeast as well, Abia State, let's be honest, be affected by crime and criminality, kidnapping in a lot of cases. So if we tackled the case of kidnappers being able to touch students, would you say it is progress as far as security is concerned?
Any little bit is progress. The government needs to have, first of all, the monopoly of force. They need to, again, I'm going to say this, they need to stand without conviction and send a message to criminals, whether they're terrorists, pickpockets, profiteers, political, this, that, the other. It doesn't matter. They need to send a very strong message that if you carry out any sort of crime in this country, we're going to find you. There's a saying abroad that the long arm of the law will catch up with you. That reputation is being built gradually over, a couple of centuries, I can say safely. That, look, you can do whatever it is you think you're going to do. At the end of the day, we will get you. It's only a matter of time. Now, has it stopped crime? No, but what it does, it's a very strong deterrence. Whereas if 10 people had an intention of committing any criminal act, the deterrence would see maybe a greatly reduced number actually carry out their foolhardy enterprise, in which case the long arm of the law catches up to them. That's the message. That's the position.
Cameron, let me interrupt you for a moment. Call out phone lines. We've got a few more minutes. If you can keep your contributions to a minute, we'll take it. 0913 5000 953. Hi, George. Good morning. Welcome. You've got a minute.
Morning, George.
Good morning, Abel and Steve. Good morning.
Morning, George.
Yeah, let me talk about the delegates.
Quickly.
Yeah. Nabella, have you, I don't know, sometimes when we speak like this, people will say, why are we using other countries to compare Nigerians? Look at what is happening in Malawi. When the government come out and tell government official, nobody should travel, government, expenditure, the courts, the president court. Make at least what make the country to move forward. Look at present, their people are suffering. I know nobody, Nigerians now, nobody can go to say can interest clearly. But we are moving with 1,400 delegates to go and do what? Something, even president is not supposed to be there. Because I don't think Joe Biden moving up and down with all this president is traveling. If you make your country very well, investors will come. Look at Popogami of Rwanda. He doesn't travel as many African presidents are traveling. People are coming to Rwanda to come and work, invest. So if you put your country in order, you don't need to get traveling up and down looking for investors. Investors will come and look for you.
All right.
That's 100 for 1,400. In fact, I don't know. You have already entered one chance. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, George. I appreciate it.
Interesting that George goes to Malawi. Cameron, your thoughts?
Yes, just very quickly to go back to the delegate question. I think what we need to ask as well is how many delegates from Nigeria attended COP27 and 26, and why the sudden increase in number now. I think that's another question we need to answer. Also, let's remember, if the federal government wants to send delegates, we have, 24 ministries, is it? Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, let's say one from each ministry and then a few advisors of the president. Tops, let's say, look, seriously, 30.
I know what you're saying. We've got more than 20. I think about 22 ministers are on that list to attend COP28.
So one per ministry, one climate change officer from a ministry if they feel they need a voice to find out this, that, the other. Because, again, the federal government says we sponsored less than 100. 2 is less than 100. 99 is less than 100.
The presidency.
Okay, the presidency. So
because the federal government is literally every minister that's there, every MDA that is present, that's the federal government.
That's it. So less than 100, 1 is less than 100. So they need to come out and say, this is a number we paid for with your money, and this is the reason why.
Well, be that as it may, the presidency has said it is not more than 100 people that are sponsored to COP28. Whether that is true or false, we'll find out in the coming days. To everybody who called in this morning, I want to say thank you very much for joining us on this particular segment of Now Breakfast. It doesn't end just yet. We've got business now coming your way so that you can understand what the markets are saying, where the money is going, and indeed what investments you should be considering over the course of the next few months.
Oh, by the way, breakfast actually extends to 10 a.m. today, right? So you want to stick around for that.
There's more coming.
Stay tuned to your Beyond the News station daily for our up-to-the-minute compact news bulletins from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., 4 p.m. and 6 p.m., bringing you a wide range of local and international news from our news desk. Stay informed, stay updated on Radio Now 95.3 FM.
From the Central Business District of Lagos, Nigeria's commercial capital, this is 95.3 Business Now.
It's Monday, the 4th of December. I am Aramide Falarishaw, and these are the business quick takes as we get the new week started. The Nigerian government and the government of Germany last Friday signed the Presidential Power Initiative Agreement to improve electricity supply in Nigeria. Speaking after the signing ceremony in Dubai, the managing director of the FGN Power Company, Kenny Anoue, highlighted Siemens Energy's effective delivery of crucial equipment worth over 63 million euros to the country since the project started. According to him, the agreement will see to the end-to-end modernization and expansion of Nigeria's electric power transmission grid with full supply, delivery and installation of Siemens manufactured equipment under the timeline of 18 to 24 months. The federal government has announced that the revised minimum wage will be implemented with effect from the 1st of April 2024, when the existing minimum wage of 30,000 naira will be terminated by March 2024. Responding to queries about the 2024 to 2026 fiscal framework budget, the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Idris Mohammed, clarified that the federal government's proposed expenditure included 24.66 trillion naira for salaries and wages in 2024, 2025 and 2026. The Central Bank of Nigeria says all bank accounts without bank verification number and national identification number will be placed on post-no debit effective from April 2024. In a notice sent to all deposit money banks, the CBN also stated that all BVN or NIN attached to accounts or walls must be electronically validated by the 31st of January 2024 as part of the efforts to promote financial system stability. The Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority says it has lifted the suspension on operations of the wet-leased aircraft operated by the United Nigeria Airlines. Last week, the agency suspended the airline's Airbus after it temporarily diverted its flight NUA 0504 headed for Abuja to Asaba in Delta State. The Director General of the World Trade Organization, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, has called for more partnerships and promotion of a green economy to empower young entrepreneurs in Africa. The WTO chief was speaking on a high-level roundtable discussion organized by the Tony Elumelu Foundation and the United Bank for Africa in Dubai on the sidelines of the ongoing COP28 conference. WTO chief highlighted the organization's role in empowering young entrepreneurs and the need for a database to ensure a green and inclusive future of trade. The global leaders at the ongoing UN Climate Conference in Dubai have emphasized the need for adaptation financing to address climate change and build resilience, in particular for the African continent. Here's an excerpt of the opening presentation made by Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, the president of the African Development Bank Group at the Adaptation Finance Summit for Africa, held on Friday.
On September 4th, 2023, Africa and the world gathered in Nairobi, Kenya, for the Africa Climate Summit hosted by President William Ruto and the African Union. It was a landmark event where Africa spoke with one voice, the African voice. That African voice reverberated globally about Africa's challenges and needs on climate change. Africa, which accounts for only 3% of cumulative emissions, suffers disproportionately from its devastating effects. The latest Climate Vulnerability Index shows that 9 out of 10 most vulnerable countries in the world to climate change are in sub-Saharan Africa. Africa is simply choking from climate change. It loses $7 to $15 billion annually due to climate change, and that is projected to rise to $50 billion by 2050. However, Africa receives just 4.5% of the global climate finance. And access to financing for adaptation is even more challenging, with the continent receiving $11 billion for climate adaptation when in fact its needs are 10 times more. The global call for doubling on climate adaptation is absolutely timely. Now we must turn that into action. Africa can no longer wait. The African Development Bank is responding strongly to climate adaptation needs of Africa. We now devote 63% of our total climate finance to adaptation, the highest share among all multilateral development banks globally. The African Development Bank and the Global Center on Adaptation launched the African Adaptation Acceleration Program to mobilize $25 billion for climate adaptation in Africa, the largest climate adaptation program, as you heard for Patrick, in the world. We are doubling down on climate adaptation for least developed countries through the Climate Action Window of the African Development Fund, and many of our funders are here today. The Climate Action Window received $429 million from the government of the United Kingdom. Thank you very much for being here, Secretary of State. Netherlands, Prime Minister, the government of Germany and Switzerland, and several other more will soon be joining us. We plan to mobilize up to $14 billion for Climate Action Window to support climate adaptation for Africa across 37 low-income countries. I am very pleased, therefore, to announce here today that the operationalization of the Climate Action Window starts right here and right now at this COP as we launch the first call for proposals this week. Together, let us deliver climate-resilient agricultural technologies for 20 million farmers, deliver weather insurance for 20 million farmers, rehabilitate 1 million hectares of degraded lands, provide water, sanitation, and health for 18 million people, and renewable energy for close to 10 million people. To deploy climate adaptation resources more effectively, the African Development Bank and the Global Center on Adaptation have supported the development of what we call country adaptation compacts in 8 countries: Senegal, Republic of Congo, Tanzania, Kenya, Nigeria, Mozambique, Equatorial Guinea, and Algeria. The development of country climate adaptation compacts is ongoing in Liberia, South Africa, Cabo Verde, Morocco, and the Republic of Benin. These country adaptation compacts will allow investors in climate adaptation at country levels to know exactly what they are supporting, the flows of financing, and the deliverables on climate adaptation. I'm therefore delighted that the Excellencies Heads of State and Government will be joining us later as we go along to speak about their adaptation compacts here today. Their leadership and advocacy will be critical to drive climate adaptation solutions, accountability, and resource flows for African Adaptation Acceleration Program, which will then support these national climate adaptation compacts. As I close, let me say, as part of our commitment, the African Development Bank will also launch here this week the Africa Climate Risk Insurance for Adaptation, otherwise called ACRIFA, a $1 billion facility that will help to insure countries against extreme weather patterns. Together, let us build buffers for Africa against climate change. Together, let us double down for a climate-resilient Africa.
Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, the president of the African Development Bank Group. We're coming up after the break. Skepticism, confusion, and concerns grip the global oil market as OPEC Plus agrees to voluntary production cuts in the first quarter of 2024. Join us again, everyone. This is Business Now.
This is 95.3 Business Now.
Welcome back to Business Now. The decision to cut back some 2.2 million barrels of oil per day in the first quarter of 2024 by OPEC Plus threw the global oil markets into confusion and concerns late last week. Oil traders saw the cutbacks led by Saudi Arabia, Russia, and others as too little in an attempt by the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries and its allies to boost the market, even though crude prices fell after the decision. Let's get some industry perspectives on this now in my conversation over the weekend with Joe Nwakowe, an oil and gas sector analyst. Take a listen.
Well, my thoughts are they've indicated since the second quarter that they were going to take these cuts, basically based on their reading of where the market was going. You will realize that there has been some supply growth over time, especially non-OPEC. So they are basically worried about what implications that will have for the price of crude. So it wasn't a surprising move. The key pillars, Saudi and Russia, which is one of the OPEC Plus, they've before now they have set up on this journey, and for the most part, it wasn't surprising that they kind of took additional cuts. I will imagine that they will review that maybe by their next meeting. But for now, the idea is that they want to keep price within that range, $70 to $80 range, and the supply from these other non-OPEC sources keeps growing. So I think they will keep evaluating and assessing the market, and that will determine whether they will relax the cuts or tighten it further.
All right, but let's talk about the previous cuts. What effects have they had on demand and pricing?
Well, when you reduce supply, the cuts serves to primarily reduce supply. When you do that, and your demand remains same, of course, prices will have to go up. That's the intention. They are doing it primarily to keep the price within the band that they've set for the market. But remember that OPEC controls maybe a quarter of the market, so the effectiveness of those cuts will have to be balanced with regards to the additional supply from the non-OPEC, additional supply from places like Guyana and all that. So you have to balance that. So my sense is that we'll wait and see what impact that will have on price. I suspect it will keep it around the $80 band. That's my expectation. So we will see what happens.
But would the latest round of voluntary cutbacks rebalance the global oil market?
Rebalancing would suggest that the market was had achieved the balance before then. I don't think so. I think that it's still it's a moving target. The market has not been balanced in a while. Remember, we were up to $90 some months back, and then it came down slightly because of increase in supply, mostly from this the non-OPEC, which is a huge portion of the market. So my sense is that I won't use the word rebalance, and I think that it's going to be a constant dynamic change. So you cut supply, and prices will get up to a point, and then of course you build up supply from the non-OPEC. So it's a balancing thing. OPEC is, like I said, only a quarter of supply is only a quarter of the total crude required daily. So the effectiveness of their cuts has to be looked at all times, has to be balanced with the production growth in the non-OPEC countries. So that's something we always have to look at.
All right. I think it's important to also look at what these developments would mean for Nigeria.
Well, we took a cut. And again, it will have implications, maybe not immediately. If they relax, maybe first quarter, if they relax the cuts, maybe we'll be okay. But right now, what it means really is that we're not going to do above 1.5 based on this the revised cuts that we have. So, and that's not really good for the country. You will argue, though, that we haven't done much more than that lately. So it's just about, that looks to me like our current capacity. So it might not hurt immediately, but when you try to address the challenges we've had with outages and, all that, if those are addressed and we restore capacity to say 1.8, 1.9, then yes, that would be a major issue for Nigeria. But for now, we are just about our capacity. The quota we have is almost equivalent to our capacity. So I think in the near term, it won't have any major impact. But in the long run, if we did the work necessary to restore capacity, then we need to worry about restoring capacity and not being able to produce it.
Okay, give me your outlook on global oil prices in the near term to the first quarter of 2024.
Well, in terms of outlook, like I said, I think the OPEC is intent on keeping the prices in the $70 to $80 range. That, I think, is a reasonable number for the market in the near term. And I said that near term is a couple of weeks. Winter is here, so when that hits, demand will creep up a little bit. So depending on at the growth rate of production from the non-OPEC, we might see a slight increase in price going into January, February. So if that materializes, then we might be in the late $80, $90 range. But if that doesn't, if supply growth continues at this current pace, then we might not see a significant jump in price.
Joe Nwakwe, an oil and gas sector analyst, dissecting the latest OPEC decision. Coming up next, the Nigerian equities rallied strongly into the new month of December. Stand by for our weekly market review after this.
This is 95.3 Business Now.
I am Aramide Falorashaw on Business Now, and let's get straight into the trading week that ended Friday the 1st of December. So the Nigerian stocks rallied last week, driven by bargain hunting in Seplat, 10% recorded there. Nestle also finished by 9.5%. Those gains pushed the NGX All-Share Index up by 0.27% week on week to close at 39.4%. Year-to-date return. The trading activity was positive as the total traded volume and value increased by 4.9% and 70.5% week on week, respectively. Across frontier African markets, the Egyptian main index started its own week, losing 0.66% on Monday. Meanwhile, the Kenya Burse saw an uptick of 0.37% on Friday. Here in West Africa, the regional exchange in Abidjan fell sharply by 1.04%, while the Ghana stock market remained flat. And in Southern Africa, the Zimbabwe stock market was slightly better by 0.05%, and the JSE in South Africa increased by 0.23% at the close of trading on Friday. So we'll get to Broad Street now. Overnight lending rates among commercial banks in Nigeria narrowed by 826 basis points week on week to 16.3%, as the system liquidity was supported by inflows from the FAAC disbursement of 583.60 billion naira and the FGM coupon payment of 5.63 billion naira, even as deposit money banks continued piling excess funds at the CBN's trading deposit facility window. Let's look at fixed income trading at the Treasury bill secondary market remained bullish as market players continue to demand bills with attractive yields across the curve. Consequently, the average yield across the market declined by 2 basis points to 10.9%. Trading in the Treasury bond secondary market turned bullish due to bargain hunting for short-dated instruments. As a result, the average yield across all instruments contracted by 22 basis points to 15.7%. And let's bring in the currencies market statistics from the week. From the FMDQ Securities Exchange, a total turnover of $597.45 million was recorded at the spot and FX derivatives segment, showing a decrease of 13.03% from $686.96 million reported in the previous week. The weekly increase in FX derivatives turnover was driven mainly by 1,700% increase in FX forwards turnover, and there were no trades executed in both exchange-traded FX futures and cleared Naira settled non-deliverable forwards market of FMDQ. In the FX spot market, total value of transactions was $578.55 million, lower by 15.65% on a week-on-week basis. Let's check the exchange rates. The average Nigerian autonomous foreign exchange fixing rate was 848 naira 72 kobo against the dollar, as representing an appreciation of 0.86% by the naira against the US dollar. And a quick look at oil prices, which dropped 2% on Friday, adding to losses from the day prior, with the market skeptical of the latest round of production cuts by OPEC Plus, and the US rigs rose week over week. A Brent crude futures for February dropped $2.02 or 2.5% to $78.84 a barrel by on their first day, as the front month ICE Brent contract. Now, US West Texas Intermediate crude futures fell $1.95 or 2.57% to $70.01 a barrel. OPEC Plus producers agreed on Thursday to remove around 2.2 million barrels per day of oil from the global market in the first quarter of next year, 2024, which included a rolling over of Saudi Arabia and Russia's current 1.3 million barrels per day of voluntary cuts. Meanwhile, the U.S. oil rigs rose by 5 week over week, but have declined by 122 to 505 total year over year. That's according to data released by Baker Hodges on Friday. And that's the package on Business Now this Monday. Make sure you have a profitable week, everyone. I am Aramide Falorashaw. It's bye for now.
This is 95.3 Business Now.
Stay tuned to your Beyond the News station daily for our up-to-the-minute compact news bulletins from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., 4 p.m. and 6 p.m., bringing you a wide range of local and international news from our news desk. Stay informed, stay updated on Radio Now 95.3 FM. The issues are all around us, but who talks about them? Law enforcement breaking the law, property owners ripping off tenants, political office holders taking the electorate for granted, or is it the plague of recurring bad policies made by the government? These are the issues. Let's talk about these and more at the Round Table. Stay locked on to Radio Now 95.3 FM every weekday as we discuss these hot topics around us on the Round Table on Now Express. The Round Table, weekdays, 5:30 p.m.
Technology is constantly evolving, and artificial intelligence is powering everything around us.
So for nations to continue to survive in the world where artificial intelligence is now everywhere around us, we must participate in governance structure in terms of how it is managed.
At Radio Now 95.3 FM, we're telling the story of the evolution of technology like nobody else can. Now that's another reason to listen to us.
Every second and every minute, something new happens. The news breaks.
3 people at a spot, and angry mob decided to burn.
Everyone wants to share it, but not everyone wants to dig deep. Now that's where we come in. We bring you the news and go beyond with in-depth conversations and analysis with stakeholders.
I honestly think that the federal government on its own part has broken.
If voters or more people want to be part of that decision-making process, they need to be part
PDP is not a good measure of development anyways. We are not there yet. We need to counter the narrative of the fact that their vote does not count. If your vote does not count.
We bring you the story within the story, and that's what makes us tick. We are Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos, and we go beyond the news.
You're listening to Now Breakfast.
Hello. And this morning, Monday, the 4th of December, it's Now Breakfast. My name's Nabila Usman. And in the studio with me on Now Breakfast, unveiling a beautiful bride. It's not bride now. It's now bride. Yeah, a beautiful bride. Who, by the way, is 6 feet? Are you like 5'11"?
Yeah, about 5'11".
Okay, yeah. I felt like the 6 was pushing it a little.
Oh, it's all right. Sometimes I look that tall to people. It depends on, well, you could say 6, but let's be honest.
It's 5'11".
5'11 is fine. It works for me.
So yes, the bride is Stephen Imediegu, who becomes my co-host on Now Breakfast.
Good morning, Lagos. It's good to be here. It's a little early for me, and I felt a moment of dislocation, really. I wondered if Thanos had snapped his fingers, because all of a sudden, I found myself looking at a Lagos that was dark. Usually when I set out from my house, Lagos has lit up a little bit, but I was here traveling in the dark, and I really wondered for a moment if Thanos was involved, but no, just everybody at Radio Now ensuring that my life is different this Monday and going forward.
Yeah, but look, still speaking on the new additions to the show, breakfast extends to 10 a.m., right? Mm-hmm. So we still got a 4 hour of conversations. And again, in line with just the new things, we're in the new dispensation, people.
Right.
After the news at 9, we actually have our Newsmaker segment coming your way. And this morning, we're diving into more conversations around Nigeria's power sector.
Right. It's a conversation that we're going to be having this conversation for an extended period of time. And I mean beyond our conversation this morning, because there are moves to sort out our electricity generation and transmission problem. We've had a number of interesting headlines as far as electricity in Nigeria are concerned, with a former minister from the Ministry of Power once saying that it's a spiritual problem and not a transmission or a generation problem. So whether that is the case, this administration is looking at physical means of solving the problem. From talking to experts in and outside Nigeria, we're going to be talking as well to you to understand if electricity has become a bigger challenge for you now than it was, say, a week ago or yesterday or 2 weeks ago, if you like, a month ago, because things are changing, the cost of living is changing. It's also possible that your electricity situation is changing, whether it's for better or worse. These are the things that we need to know.
So you want to stick around, right? The news comes up at the top of the hour. This is Still Now Breakfast with Nabila Usman and Stephen Imediegu. This is the station that takes you beyond the news.
This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.
Hi, I'm Chris. I'm a trader operating a chain of supermarkets. I engage in monthly comfortable contributions with my insurance company. It gave me the opportunity to inject capital into my business during peak periods and reap handsome returns. I never knew that an insurance company can be that helpful. Kudos to Mutual Benefits Assurance for such innovative and business-sustaining insurance products.
Take advantage of the delightful offers and experience the peace that comes with knowing that you can count on Mutual Benefits Assurance to protect you and what you value the most. Call Mutual Benefits Assurance today on 0905 474 4444 to get started and enjoy these and more, or visit www.mutualng.com for more information. Mutual Benefits Assurance, creating and protecting wealth.
Be a part of our online community on Facebook. Like our page on www.facebook.com/This Is Radio Now to join every conversation on air and get up-to-date news information on the go.
Stay tuned to your Beyond the News station daily for our up-to-the-minute compact news bulletins from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., 4 p.m. and 6 p.m., bringing you a wide range of local and international news from our news desk. Stay informed, stay updated on Radio Now 95.3 FM.
Across Nigeria, Africa and the world, this is Radio Now News.
Good morning, it's Monday the 4th of December and you're listening to Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos. I'm Stephen Imediegu with the news at 9 a.m. Officers of the Orile Division of the Lagos State Police Command have arrested a 27-year-old suspected cultist, Ahmed Ololade, aka Small Mercy. In a post on its official X handle yesterday, the command says Ololade was arrested in possession of one local pistol, 2 single-barrel shotguns, live cartridges, charms, amongst others. It added that the investigation of the case is ongoing. 6 months after it was commissioned by the immediate past administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, on May the 23rd, the federal government has taken over the second Niger bridge from the contractor, Julius Berger. Addressing journalists shortly after he was conducted around the bridge by the managing director of Julius Berger, Dr. Lars Richer, the Minister of Works, David Umahi, said he was satisfied with the level of work done. While commending the previous administration for doing a lot to bring the work to conclusion, he said that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was very committed to the project and added that the federal government has plans to build service stations, filling stations, restaurants and supermarkets and other facilities as seen in the Western world. The minister pointed out that CCTV cameras would be installed at the facility, including security personnel and surveillance and patrol every 5 minutes to enhance security on the bridge. The managing director of Julius Berger, Richer, earlier in his speech said the event was a technical handover after the project was inaugurated by the former administration. Nigeria is calling for the release of ousted Niger President Mohamed Bazoum and for the military junta to allow him leave for a third country. Nigeria currently chairs the regional group, the Economic Community of West African States (ECOWAS), which has imposed sanctions on Niger following the July coup that ousted Bazoum. ECOWAS has been demanding Bazoum's immediate return to the presidency, but the military junta has kept him in detention and says it may need up to 3 years for a return to civilian rule. ECOWAS leaders will meet in Nigeria's capital Abuja on the 10th of December to discuss the region where coups since 2020 have put military juntas in power in Mali, Burkina Faso, Guinea and Niger Republic. Last month, a failed coup attempt left 21 dead in Sierra Leone, another member of ECOWAS, according to senior officials in that country. The chairman of the Senate Inter-Parliamentary Committee, Jimoh Ibrahim, says there is a need for African countries to sign climate change liability agreements with all developed countries responsible for carbon emissions on the continent. Senator Ibrahim, who is currently in Dubai, the United Arab Emirates, in the company of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for the 28th United Nations Climate Change Conference, or COP28, emphasized the need for developed countries to sign a liability agreement with African countries on climate change and also compensate Africa for carbon emissions on the continent. He noted that if the developed countries paid compensation to African countries on the impact of climate change on the continent, it would help Africa to offset its huge foreign debt. He also noted that combustion and emissions from industrial toxic wastes know no boundaries and move around the globe and also settle on the continent of Africa. In entertainment, streaming platform Spotify has named Rema and Asake as Afrobeat's global ambassadors in their Wrapped 2023, the annual data-led recap of how people listened to music and podcasts on their platform. Rema's collaboration with American pop star Selena Gomez on the hit single Calm Down has won him legions of fans worldwide and has become the first African-led single to reach 1 billion streams on Spotify. Ashake's audiences across Nigeria, Ghana and Togo earned him the title of most streamed artist in each country. His dominance continued in the top 10 most streamed tracks, with 3 of his hits, Lonely at the Top, 230 and Amapiano, making the cut. Interestingly, the late Mohbad secured a position in the top 20 list of the most streamed artists in Nigeria, an attribute to the increased interest in his music following his untimely death. His track Ask About Me was the top streamed track every day between 13th and 25th September. And we close off with news from the world of sports, where Nigeria's Army Corporal Hannah Ruben has won a gold medal in wrestling at the ongoing World Military Wrestling Championship in Azerbaijan. Corporal Ruben competed in the women's 76kg event while representing the Nigerian Army at the 36th edition of the wrestling competition organized for militaries across the globe. The Director of Defense Information, Brigadier General Tuku Gusau, said this was the first time the Armed Forces of Nigeria is securing a gold medal since participating at the CISM World Wrestling Championship. According to the Director of Defense Information, the Armed Forces of Nigeria's wrestling team made the indelible mark on the global stage and set a record as well as garnered widespread acclaim. He also praised Lance Corporal Esther Ojolade, who got a silver medal in the 72kg weight category earlier in the event. And that's all for the news at 9 here on Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos. Listen online from anywhere in the world at www.thisisradionow.com. Click on the Listen Live button so you can take us with you everywhere you go. We'd also like to connect with you on social media. On Facebook, we're at www.facebook.com/thisisradionow. And on all other social media platforms, we are at Radio Now 953 FM. My name is Stephen Imediegu, and Now Breakfast continues momentarily. Good morning.
This is Radio Now News.
Stay tuned to your Beyond the News station daily for our up-to-the-minute compact news bulletins from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., 4 p.m. and 6 p.m., bringing you a wide range of local and international news from our news desk. Stay informed, stay updated on Radio Now 95.3 FM.
This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, Stay for informed conversations.
Please, officer, now. I know to make money today. I beg now.
Hey! Laolu! Today is the day you are going to pay for all your sins.
Something exciting out of the stables of Sanitary Pad Media Campaign.
Not me. I know well, wallahi. Since yesterday. My stomach, I dey pain now. Come on, I no sleep.
Yeah.
A radio drama soap, My Period, My Pride.
This woman, come on for road. You know they look your back. Come on for road, this woman, huh? Come on for road.
My Period, My Pride, an advocacy tool for the provision of free sanitary pads for schoolgirls in Nigeria, powered by Sanitary Pad Media Campaign with support from MacArthur Foundation
and Radio Now 95.3 FM.
My Period, My Pride, Season 1, The Story of Efi.
Every Saturday at 10 a.m.
Kwamitin kula da daidaita harkokin tsarin kuɗi wato FSRCC tare da haɗin gwiwar hukumar yada labarai ta ƙasa wato NBC na mai ƙoƙarin yin gargaɗi ga mutane domin su ƙaurace wa 'yan damfara da ke damun al'umma wato IFOs wanda hakan haɗari ne ga jama'a da kuma tsarin hada-hadar kuɗaɗen Najeriya. Ana mai shawartar gaba ɗaya mutane da su guje yin mu'amala da masu gudanar da harkokin kuɗaɗe marasa lasisi. Ku tabbatar da kun yi binciken matsayin lasisin waɗannan kamfanonin da tsare-tsarensu akan waɗannan yanar gizon. www.cbn.gov.ng, www.nicom.gov.ng, www.pencom.gov.ng, www.sec.gov.ng domin kai korafi ga duk wanda ake zargi ga wannan haramtacciyar harka zuwa ga hukumomin doka da suka dace a kira 0700 225 5226 0800 225 5226 ko +234 817 665 6273 FSRCC.
We are intentional about the stories we tell and the language we use in telling them.
Intentional about the people we speak to and why we speak to them.
Because here at Radio Now 95.3 FM, we aren't just telling any story.
We are telling your story.
And your story is all that matters.
Stay tuned to your Beyond the News station daily for our up-to-the-minute compact news bulletins from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., 4 p.m. and 6 p.m., bringing you a wide range of local and international news from our news desk. Stay informed, stay updated on Radio Now 95.3 FM.
You're listening to Now Breakfast.
It's still Now Breakfast this morning here on Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos. My name's Nabila Usman here in the studio with Stephen Imedigu.
Good morning, Nabila. Good morning, Lagos.
Good morning. Today's Monday, the 4th of December, and as will become the norm for Monday at 9 right after the news, our newsmaker joins us. On the sidelines of the climate change conference in Dubai, our government and the German government signed an agreement to add 12,000 megawatts to Nigeria's electricity grid. This is said to be an acceleration of the 2019 Presidential Power Initiative Agreement, which was signed with German energy company Siemens. At the signing, which was last Friday, the managing director of the federal government of Nigeria, that's the FGN Power Company, Kenny Anui, spoke on a few developments so far. Here he is.
In terms of the high-level things that have been achieved, the FGN Power Company has also received approval from the Federal Executive Council for the contracting of 11,000 kilometers of distribution lines in one tranche of 3 for the construction of distribution lines to support the PPI. In terms of the way forward then, we shall draw, Mr. President, Your Excellency, the Chancellor, on the commitments that will be made today, or that are being made today, that you have both graciously handheld to this point to deliver a future for Nigeria that promises an effective leadership and partnership with the world-renowned Siemens Energy, and the German government with its financiers.
That was the MD of, that's the managing director of the FGN Power Company, Kenny Anue, speaking at the agreement. The Minister of Power, Adebayo Adelabu, says this new agreement will be funded by Nigeria's export facilities provided by German banks. Our newsmaker this morning is Adeola Yusuf. Mr. Yusuf is the team lead at Platforms Africa and also an energy sector analyst. Good morning and welcome, Mr. Yusuf.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to be on the program this morning. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to have you. Let's start off with your reaction to this 12,000 megawatts deal that was signed.
Okay, thank you so much. It's a very, very good development, but a bit of a background to make more people to understand what that deal was all about. It was signed, a few days ago.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that exactly 4 years ago, in 2019, that was a deal, a contract, an agreement signed between Nigeria and Germany, Siemens. Germany comes in anytime we talk about Siemens because Germany finances Siemens. It's a German company, and the company, represents Germany anywhere they go to, negotiate deals and all that. Now, after that 2019 deal, the delivery date ought to have, the contract ought to have been completed. So a lot of things happened between 2019 and now that, no one envisaged and no one could be able to control. Number one of it, on the top of the list, is the COVID-19. Remember that in 2020, the point was in which everybody was compelled against everybody's wish to stay indoors. There was a total lockdown of the economy, of the world. There was a total lockdown even of a lot of, various industries. And this definitely affected that contract as well. Apart from that, you understand that this deal is between two countries that use different units of exchange. Nigeria uses Naira. They don't use Naira in Germany. And because those two countries, want that deal to come to, it will be a win-win situation.
Hello, Mr. Yusuf. Can you hear me? You're fading out. We're having issues with a steady connection. Can you perhaps readjust?
Yes. I'll do now.
It's still a bit wonky.
Okay. So I've changed the position. And,
okay, this is actually steadier. Please go ahead.
Okay, so and a lot of things too happened to the dollar, which was the unified unit of exchange between the two countries, and a lot of other things in the government and all that. Remember that all deals are in the government, the tail end of every contract is assigned, that in case there are changes, both the parties to that deal need to be transparent enough and declare that, okay, these and these are the variables that can affect delivery of the deal. And because of those that I've highlighted earlier, you could see that a lot of things are, happened and the deal, is looking as if it won't be delivered. Remember that Nigeria has been trying its best. The former, I think it was Kyari, during the administration of former President Muhammad Buhari, went to Germany, and it was as a result of that that he contracted COVID-19 that eventually led to his death. May God rest his soul. So that is to show that government after government, have been trying their best. Now it is obvious that deal needed a boost, needed a feeling, needed a boost, needed to be affected by finding another deal, about those variables that can affect the eventual delivery of that, deal. So what the government of Nigeria and that of Germany did a few days ago at the ongoing COP28 is to now find another deal to accelerate the deal that we had on ground by addressing those key areas that will eventually affect the delivery of the deal. So it's a very good thing because in business world, in fact, it is part of every business, if it is signed, is a bilateral. If it's signed between two countries or more than that, it has to be put there that if one is not able to be
Hello, Mr. Yusuf.
Hello?
I apologize. The connection with you broke down a bit. Let me ask a question. This particular power supply deal that has been signed, what's it targeting exactly? Is it generation or transmission of power?
Okay, it is both generation and transmission, but particularly it's more of the transmission. Because okay, if you allow me, it's important for our listeners to understand that anytime we press our fuse at home and and the bulb is switched on, it is not at that point that power is an entire value chain, and it has the first one is the generation, and that has to do with where, like the name where generation production of that power actually takes place. And Nigeria, there are majority of our power generation is thermal. Thermal means gas to generate that electricity. We have hydro too, where we have dam and all of that where power is generated. Then from there, all the power that are generated, they are evacuated through the transmission lines. Our listeners, a lot of them would have come across, those skeletal looking, lines spread across the country, over 5,000 kilometers of them spread across Nigeria. So that is what is being used to evacuate that power. Because remember, that power is generated at very, very high voltage, very dangerous and high voltage. So it needs something like that to evacuate that power from that generation, companies from that generation. Then, after taking it, because it's still very, very high voltage, you have to step it down at what they call the transmission line. All those ones, transmission, what they call the transmission
stations?
Transmission stations. So, and from that transmission station, it will line to take it to our various that transmission station that they will step it down, they will step the power high voltage down, then take it to the transformers at our various rooms. That's what a lot of us relate with. And at that, transformer, it is being stepped down again to the level where it can be used and, that will, have little to those that want to. So, to that transformer is when the distribution now, takes effect. That is when you can see all the things that we relate to. That is at that point that they cannot take it and start distributing it into the various. So now, to talk about this deal, it's majorly because you understand that power is an entire value chain. If anything happens to the generation, the transmission and the distribution will not be effective. If anything happens to the transmission, the generation and the distribution will not be effective. If anything happens to the distribution, the two that are highlighted earlier will not be effective. So it's an entire value chain that needs to be worked on. And over the years, we could see that the transmission has been described as the weak link. The reason being that majority of times the generation companies have been complaining that they have been asked to reduce production because the transmission lines don't
have the capacity.
Anytime, it's a simple arithmetic, in simple engineering arithmetic. Anytime, over capacity is done on that transmission line. So that's part of the reasons we usually have that, grid to have all the time. It's part of time they ask them to step down production to generation so that what they will put on the transmission line will be something that the transmission line will be able to. Over the years, we've even had that majority of those, assets are obsolete and all that. So, for Nigerians to not get at their homes, at the distribution end, to not get everything from the generation, it means that a lot of work has to be done at that link, the link, which is the transmission. So, this contract is about, helping the transmission capacity, helping to boost, the transmission, so that at least more and more companies will be able to be allowed to generate a lot of contracts to be signed to generate so that, the evacuation will be easily done.
Mr. Yusuf, this raises questions around, I want to come to the Electricity Act, the empowering of the subnational level, and conversations we've had around mini grids as opposed to one national grid. If at all we're able to meet up with, if we're able to meet up with the vision for power supply in the country, isn't it somewhat counter to some of these other conversations that are coming up where we're looking more towards diversification?
Okay, thank you very much. I think that's a very, very nice question. But I will call your attention to the fact that Nigeria is a country of over 200 million people. In fact, from a lot of research that have been done, it's shown that Nigeria, aside from, the major market, the biggest market for consumption of other products, it is the biggest market for consumption of electricity. A lot of, companies, the small scale, middle scale companies are not at their efficient capacity because they don't have that electricity. So the issue about, diversification and working on what we have on ground, it doesn't arise because we need even more and more of cement-like contracts. So that transition. From the last statistics, it's true that less than 40% of Nigerians are on the grid. By that calculation, it means that about 70 or over 70% of Nigerians are not even on the grid. Some of them don't even have connections to the grid. What they do is to generate electricity from their own, I better pass my neighbor, or from other sources of electricity. So it is a fact that even the very huge market has accepted a lot of other contracts to be signed, a lot of diversification. We are very much, seeing the result of even the renewable energies, the solar, the wind, and all that.
Mr. Yusuf, if I may, I understand your point, and you're quite right. There are massive power needs, and the communities that have never seen electricity at all, which then you started talking about renewable energy sources. I immediately think about the work of the Rural Electrification Agency, but there is still a significant concern around how much of these projects in their different capacities are working towards a master plan.
Okay, you need to make me understand the question, actually, or is it a comment?
No. It's a question around, because it goes back to the initial question I asked. These are all different projects, right? And our vision for power continues to be to provide 24/7 light to as many, if not all, Nigerians as we need to. However, you talk about this Siemens agreement. You talk about the Electricity Act that allows the subnationals become an active part. You talk about the Rural Electrification Agency, which has looked towards other sources of energy, renewables and whatnot. How much of these discussions in their individual spaces are we having within the context of a master plan?
Okay, thank you so much. First of all, let me commend the radio now for this, conversation we're having. I think it's at this point I need to call on others to start into this. And right on the back of that, to say that we don't even have enough of discussion around this. Let's start an example. We have discovered that power is one of the most needed commodities, allow me to use that word, whereas it is the most misunderstood in Nigeria. Let me start an example. If a councillor is contesting in a rural area, part of his, electioneering, part of his campaign will be that I'm going to give you electricity. So, not to talk of,
go on.
Not talk of, chairman of governments that are, fighting for that position. Everybody will tell you, I want to give you electricity. The governors will go to a community where he has electorate. We will tell them, I'm going to give you electricity. And it is so clear that it's beyond their power until the recent, the recently signed Electricity Act, that gives, the leeway to. And I'll come to that to explain that. But at this point, that's shown that it is something that is beyond, or something when it gets to, at the level that we are operating now, it's beyond a lot of those people. Whereas, with the Electricity Act signed, it has been liberalized. So that the governors, before now, if you generate, 100 megawatts, no matter who you are, you have to, there is the law, that has been repealed, that the Electricity Act shows that you have to send that to the national grid. It is a must that send it to the national grid. If you want to now negotiate the price or not, you must send it to the national grid. But with the Electricity Act, if you can generate that as an estate, if you can generate that as a company, if you can generate that as a small, community, you can go ahead and generate that. And that has been in place before is a part of, the privatization deal that was signed. In that privatization deal signed, where the power holding companies of Nigerian assets was sold to the DISCO, it is stated there that Nigeria had a repeat of what happened during the Berlin conference, in which Africa was compartmentalized, in which Africa was divided and shared among others. So Nigeria has been shared among DISCOs, 11 of them. So nobody can come to the district of one DISCO and say that he wants to, start generating that 100 megawatts without, going to that DISCO to get permission before. You understand? And that has, the progress in the electricity industry. So with the Electricity Act, it shows that, okay, you cannot be stopped by DISCO. All you just need to do is to just inform the DISCO, sign deals with them that, okay, you are going to, as an estate, as a company, that falls under their, their catchment area, that you want to start generating electricity. And as a state government, you can do that and do that and do that. Quickly, let me talk about impediments. As we speak now, it's only two states. Part of the Electricity Act that, that act has to be domesticated to states before it can take effect. It's only 2 states in Nigeria that have domesticated that. So 2 out of 36 shows that, 36 shows that not all Nigerians can start celebrating over that. But it's a good thing that first step has been taken. Now, so to go back to what the question you asked about, the capacity and talked about that, I tell you that we need to even start talking more about electricity, for people to understand electricity, for people to understand why they are where they are and the possibility of going ahead and moving from where they are. Thank you so much for this talk about the deal signed between Nigeria and Germany. You want time, and I think when we all do this, or if we all do this, it's going to help the country and help everyone that is within the country.
Thank you very much, Adeola Yusuf, for speaking to us on this particular issue. This morning we were speaking with Adeola Yusuf, the team lead at Platforms Africa, is an energy sector analyst, on the Newsmaker, talking about the recently signed deal between Nigeria and German company Siemens that is aiming to add 12,000 megawatts to Nigeria's electricity grid. We ask that you stay tuned. This conversation and more will be available for you right here on Now Breakfast and all of our other programs on your Beyond the News station, Radio Now 95.3 FM.
Technology is constantly evolving, and artificial intelligence is powering everything around us.
So for nations to continue to survive in the world where artificial intelligence is now everywhere around us, we must participate in governance structure in terms of how it is managed.
At Radio Now 95.3 FM, we're telling the story of the evolution of technology like nobody else can. Now that's another reason to listen to us.
Every second and every minute, something new happens. The news breaks.
3 people at a spot, and angry mob decided to bomb.
Everyone wants to share it, but not everyone wants to dig deep. Now that's where we come in. We bring you the news and go beyond with in-depth conversations and analysis with stakeholders.
I honestly think that the federal government on its own part has broken.
If voters or more people want to be part of that decision-making process, they need to be part.
PDP is not a good measure of development anyways. We are not there yet. We need to counter the narrative of the fact that their vote does not count. If their vote does not count.
We bring you the story within the story. And that's what makes us tick. We are Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos, and we go beyond the news. In order to keep up with our culture of excellence and continue to bring you the very best of radio programming, we invite you, our dear esteemed listener, to share your concerns with us on any of our content and or broadcast practices that you consider unsatisfactory. You can reach us via WhatsApp on 0809 682 2595. That is 0809 682 2595. This is for us to get your feedback on our efforts to continue to build and maintain our relationship with you and also to serve you better. Thank you for choosing Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos.
This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.
Every second and every minute, something new happens. The news breaks.
3 people at a spot, and angry mob decided to bomb.
Everyone wants to share it, but not everyone wants to dig deep. Now that's where we come in. We bring you the news and go beyond with in-depth conversations and analysis with stakeholders.
I honestly think that the federal government on its own part has broken.
If voters or more people want to be part of that decision-making process, they need to be part.
PDP is not a good measure of development anyways. We are not there yet. We need to counter the narrative of the fact that their vote does not count. If their vote does not count.
We bring you the story within the story. And that's what makes us tick. We are Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos, and we go beyond the news.
You're listening to Now Breakfast.
You're welcome back into it. It is time for one of the new pieces that we're bringing to you right here on Now Breakfast. This morning on Community Watch, we're going to be talking to you and focusing on those small niggling concerns that you have in your local communities, not just in Lagos, but in every other state of Nigeria. It's our hope that by having these conversations with you, we're going to be able to help get your concerns directly across to the authorities that are responsible for it, whether it is the situation that you're facing with refuse disposal, flooding, even if it is something as incidental as the presence of rats or rodents in your community. We're very interested in knowing exactly what pinches you, what parts of the shoe pinches you. Is it the toe? Is it the heel? And we're not just doing this this way this morning. We will be getting your calls in via the live studio lines, but during the course of our following editions, we will be coming to visit you in your part of town so that we can actually hear what is going on and see it for ourselves as well. So this morning, our phone lines are still the same. We'd like you to call in and speak to us on the various phone lines that we have for the conversation this morning. 0913 5000 953, 0901 111 1953. If you can't call and you want to send us a message on WhatsApp, our WhatsApp number is 0809 6822595. Let's hear what is happening in your community across Lagos and across Nigeria. I have had the opportunity to visit two different communities. Now, one of the communities is one that I live in. The other is about 2 buses away from where I live in at the moment. And I find that electricity, Nabila, is a bit of a concern for Nigerians across Lagos State, at least as far as the last 5 days are concerned. Various conversations, even snatches of conversations that I've heard in public spaces like buses, have indicated that there is a drop in the amount of electricity that is available. Now, we just finished the conversation talking about increasing what is available on the national grid, but it appears that right now it is still a situation that needs to be dealt with. So the question is electricity working for you in your part of town? Do you have ample electricity? Is the voltage good enough to carry your refrigerator, your television, or even power the lights that you need to move about your house?
It's interesting that you should bring this up as our conversation, simply because I've had light issues. I returned to Lagos on Sunday, and since Sunday I have spent at least 4 of those days without light. It's not that they haven't brought light at some point. They brought power at some point. After like 48 hours, they would return power. In the space of that 48 hours, I had light for a total of 10 minutes.
Oh dear.
Yes, it was the most frustrating thing. Everything I had in the freezer, because my freezer is a small one, right? It's not a deep freezer. It was essentially on its way to it had defrosted. It was still just a little cold, so I deceived myself that whatever is inside, is still somewhat fresh. It is, thankfully. But yeah, I couldn't put anything in the fridge. It was frustrating. My devices were essentially on their way to
sleeping.
6 feet under. Exactly. And they eventually brought the light back. Even last night, I had the issue.
Right.
They brought it back, and I found out that the meter that we use in my particular unit, it's a single phase meter.
Right.
So you can't change from one phase to another phase to another phase. And our transformer went bad. And since it's been bad, the 2 phases we have to my area no longer have light at the same time all the time. Instead, they'll return the power and to be on one particular phase. And if we're not connected to that phase, sorry for us, we don't have power.
As they say, Oyo is your case.
Exactly.
You just reminded me when you started talking about the refrigerators that I may have some spoiled food in my fridge. I'm very tempted to say I will sue, but I'm fully aware that I can't sue anybody about it. But how is it affecting you? Are you experiencing the same situations with power? Our numbers this morning, 0913 5000 953, 0901 111 1953. If you want to send us a voice note, send us a message on WhatsApp, 0809 682 2595. It's Community Watch, and we want to know those tiny issues that seem to go unnoticed or have, if you want, become a part of life. Let's hear about them so that we can escalate them as much as possible and get them the attention that they deserve. Because let's be honest, they say it's little drops of water that make the ocean mighty. It's also little drops of problems unsolved over time that might make you a surly employee, make you unproductive at work or at school, and these things gradually mount up to affecting us on a much larger level across Nigeria. Well, while we're still waiting to talk to you about this particular issue, Nabila, this one might strike you a little strange. I have this construction that I use to hold the gates of my premises from swinging back and forth and striking a vehicle that's driving in and out. And on 3 separate occasions, we've had to replace it. It's a circular bit of metal that has a stand, and it's just in the ground. And the reason why we've had to replace it is because it's been stolen on 2 different occasions. It's been stolen by people who trade in metal and, all of those things. It's particularly interesting that somebody would walk into a residential area and, deem it fit to uproot a piece of metal that obviously someone intentionally planted to keep their gates from swinging about when it's open. So we've had to install the 3rd one. This time we've cemented it properly, and we spend some time looking out of the house to make sure that especially when we hear the sound of those who trade in metal, you hear them drumming on the metal walking past your house, we make sure that nobody is drumming on the ground there and excavating it as well. So it begs the question, what's going on with community policing? Shouldn't community policing involve occasionally checking up on things like this?
Look, yeah, you're not wrong. Typically when you talk about community policing is a word I'm reluctant to use, right? There's a reason why they say it's why we're community watch. So if you have a community watch, you know that these are people that are not going to go about with anything dangerous. They're literally just a community, a neighborhood that says, look, we want to
You have to call it policing.
Wait, you know what? Emmanuel has come to save me. Hi, Emmanuel. Good morning.
Good morning, guys.
Emmanuel
Good
is in
morning.
Igondo. How's Igondo this morning?
Igondo is calm. It's always calm anyway.
I am coming your way.
Yes, it's especially calm since the last 3 or 4 days now. There hasn't been electricity, so the usual shenanigans of loud music and all manner of things. I don't know. I can't find an explanation for it. And usually, the Ikeja Electric used to have an expand where they would give notifications of, hey, we're having challenges here and there. So now, no power. Without an excuse. And everywhere is really very calm.
Is it a bit too calm, Emmanuel? It sounds as though you're missing the noise and the hustle and bustle.
I don't, that's the funny thing. It's a dilemma of sorts because I like the calmness, but also the calmness to be aided if for instance, my ceiling fan were rolling or my AC was on, so that I would really be calm and school in my own space. But right now it's calm, yes, but there are important things that need to be done with electricity that are not being done. So I'm not calm. The environment is calm, but it's not helping my calmness. I hope you understand my dilemma right now.
Yeah.
I know there was power, for instance, my neighbors would probably be playing music at the loudest voice, but I think I could manage that by locking my windows, turning on my AC and trying to ignore them. But right now, environment is calm. I'm not calm. It's a problem.
I feel your pain, Emmanuel. Thank you so much for letting us know. Our final question.
Thank you, Emmanuel.
I was going to ask you, Emmanuel, if you've been able to reach out to Ikeja Electric to find out exactly what is going on, because 3-4 days is a long time. That's enough time for your fridge to defrost.
Yes, I was actually, this opportunity I was using, I was trying to use for influence, probably to get out, but also I'm going to make an extra message or a tweet to them. They seem to respond actively, but this is unlike them, actually. And usually we would even get sometimes text messages to say, hey, this is the issue. Right now it's radio silent.
Okay.
So let me use the radio waves too.
Thank you very much for speaking to us, Emmanuel. What's happening in your part of Lagos, Nigeria? What's happening in your community? Is there a place where a bridge should have been built, but that bridge does not exist? Or has the bridge been washed away by rain? Nabila, we are supposed to be in the middle of Harmattan, but the rain keeps coming and coming and coming. It's just, it's non-stop. So when you expect to see dry season, you find yourself having to wade through mud. So that's another problem.
I told you I went to KD last week. I was in Kaduna, and I remember, first of all, the Harmattan is not as
serious now.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Which is a bit shocking, because at this time of the year, it really should be on its way towards being full force. But I experienced it for a few days. Actually, it's still there, but in different forms. So for a couple of days, it was pretty intense. It was really cold. The wind was really dry. So your nostrils, it will just be dry. Your breath will be, everything is, you're struggling for air, right? And the sun is still very much shining and very much beating you and whatnot. I had a thought that when they're teaching Nigerian children in primary school about the seasons in our country, do they say to them that, okay, well, end of year we get Harmattan, but Harmattan up north is not Harmattan down south? No,
I've never had a differentiation, really. It's just, I just hear that's Harmattan.
There's a proper differentiation. If you were in Zaria experiencing this, I'll tell you how extreme it would be.
Oh.
You could leave your house for 2 days, just 2 days, and return, and literally, you just sweep your hand across it's louvers that are in most of the homes, like old homes. Just sweep your hand across one louver, and the I can't call it dust, because sand has gone to settle in people's houses. You sweep your house this morning, return in the evening, and just swipe your hand across, and
you need to sweep again.
Nobody has been living here for 2 weeks. What's up? That is Harmattan down up north.
Last time I was in Nasarawa, I experienced it, but it's not been the case. I mean, Lagos has never really had the Harmattan as such. You might find some, the sun is a little hotter, the air is a little drier, but you rarely find rain in December. However, I've witnessed 2 different sessions of rain fall in the month of December, all in the same period when we should be having Harmattan, cold nights and dry afternoons, maybe a bit of cool mornings as well, but that's not been the case at all. So rains are still happening. The weather is changing. Perhaps it's a global warming, phenomenon that we have not acknowledged just yet. Perhaps this is what we need to talk about when it comes to climate change. Maybe things have changed as far as our seasons are concerned, but we don't know just yet. What we know is that you're experiencing something, and we want to hear about it. So feel free to call us this morning. Our numbers are still the same right here on The Conversation.
0913 5000 953 and 0901 1111 953. We have a WhatsApp message. WhatsApp line is 08096822595. And I will come to the message in a bit. Olawale is in Orile Igomu. We'll come to you. We've got Tochi on the line. Tochi, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good morning, Tochi.
I'm doing all right.
Please go ahead. You've got the floor. Do you have lights?
Yes. Concerning things, no, we do not have lights. We do not have
Somebody
lights.
that has light should call us and say they have light at least, so that it's not be that, it's bad everywhere.
Honestly, we don't understand why there's no light. There's been no indication whatsoever as to why. There's no light. Somebody's saying that we don't have Harmattan either, but I think that's a godly thing. Right? But we don't have lights, and it's been days now. I mean, water is scarce. Freezers are off. Food is going bad in the fridges and everything, and then it's alarming. All of a sudden, there's no light anymore.
Wow.
So, but that's on the one side. The other thing I'd really want to mention is the fact that we now have some unofficial officers on the road carrying sticks and torchlights most of the time, harassing vehicles, particularly trucks, all around Lagos. In this environment, especially. They're there from around 6:30 in the evening till maybe around 4 a.m. And if you're driving on the road, they jump out from anywhere they are and then they flash you with the torchlight and, all that. I don't know if Lagos is aware of this, but they're not uniformed people. They mostly wear reflectives and they just move around.
What part of Lagos?
I'm talking about Igondo, where I stay.
Oh.
If you're coming in from somewhere around Egbeda in Lagos, all the way down to Igondo and Sianoba, you have them scattered around that area too. Major bus stops, you have them there. And I noticed, because sometimes I drive at night, I go to work and I come in really late, I noticed that they particularly target trucks. Articulate trucks, trucks with load or whatever. And then they stop them, they harass them. Sometimes I've even seen an incident where one of them got run over by a truck because, they were just, jumped into the road like that. So I don't know if the government is aware of this, but it's a bit of a situation because at some point this may turn into a whole anybody who is driving, stop your car, what are you carrying, harassment or even a robbery.
Tochi, may I ask if you've perhaps spoken to anybody about it, like authority-wise?
I haven't particularly been able to talk to anyone about this, mostly because at the hour when I find them on the road, there are no law enforcement agents around. But
you could try tweeting about it.
Yes, to actually talk to some police officers or last mile officials or about this situation because it's alarming.
So Tochi, here's the thing, right? Like, we will try on our end, but I'd like to encourage you as well. I know at least and anybody who's on Twitter knows that the spokesperson for the Lagos State Police Command, Benjamin Hundeyin, SP Hundeyin, he typically is active. So do you want to give that a try?
I definitely will give that a try. I mean, now that we're talking about it, I think it's an important thing to do. We're approaching the tail end of, in fact, this is the end of the year, basically. And everybody wants to be safe, moving around and everything. It's not like that some scrupulous fellows just decide to come on the road and do whatever they like. I mean, it's wrong. It's really wrong. This is Lagos. Come on.
All right, so please, but once again, we don't have light. I don't know what's up, but we don't have light.
Important. Thank you very much, Tochi from Igondo. Well, it appears the no light situation is going on in a few other places. Olawale sends us a message on WhatsApp from Orile Igom, who says, this is the 5th month without power in my street at Hassana Street in Orile Igom.
5 months. It's
5
about
months.
time you pack your building.
Yeah.
Like your entire building, just move it
remove
from
the
area.
building. It's not just your load at this time. He's also saying that we challenged their crazy bill, and since we did, we haven't had light. Oh, that is interesting.
Would have been great to know if it's estimated billing or you've got a meter.
Right. So Olawale, let us know. Is it an estimated billing situation, or if you have one of those meters, and the charges are just a little beyond you? But let's hear the full details. Do call us. We still have just about enough time to take a couple more calls and messages. Send your messages as well. Our numbers have not changed. If you want to call into the show this morning onto the conversation, 0913 5000 953, 0901 111 1953. On WhatsApp, we are 0809 682 2595. And we are now. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning.
Good morning. My name is Joseph. I'm calling from Uganda.
Hello,
Joseph from Igondo.
See, all of you in Igondo, it's like I need to ask what's happening with your power.
I want to confirm what that young man said. That is exactly true. You see some of those young men
on the roads
at night. Most times at night, they have torchlights. You see them trying to flash down cars, and if they carry any property, definitely they are going to track you down. And besides, I don't even know what's going on now. Some of the streets, you see some boys stopping car owners, asking for money, and the thing is becoming so rampant in that artist now. Definitely, the issue about light, we don't. There's no light. There's no light. We are run out of water now. If I inside my car now, I have a big drum. I want to see whether I can get water from the office. And then, I don't know. I don't know whether it's a national issue or something.
I don't think it's national, but it's possible. And quite unfortunately, Joseph, first of all, let me say thank you. I appreciate you calling us and sharing your experience.
Yes, and I want to wish you people happy 33 years celebration, right?
Thank you.
Thank
3
you very
years.
much.
Yes. Thank you. We appreciate it. Cheers. Have a good day. I was going to say that I guess it's unfortunate because this coming a little late, about a week or so, but there was a customer complaint resolution forum that Ikeja Electric, they advertised on their social media. So NERC, that's the Electricity Regulatory Commission, they actually asked people to come around to discuss what their issues were with power supply. It was a town hall, but this was like the latter end of November. So we'll certainly keep an eye out. Perhaps next time, the next one will catch it early enough.
Well, that's the hope that we have, and it will be a good thing to have these conversations, especially when they say, come out, let's talk about the issues in the wake of this, the absence of power in places like Igondo. Radio Now's David Chiedu has graced us with his presence. David, good morning. Good morning.
You didn't introduce him well.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Guess who's back?
David's back. Nice, by the way, nice outfit.
Hi,
nice
David.
outfit, David.
Hi, guys. Good morning.
Good morning.
Do you have light?
When I left my house this morning, there was.
You've had light for a while.
Not for a while. The weekend, it was pretty much.
It was touch and go.
Well, that.
If you didn't have light for 5 months like Olawale, you'd have started with, I don't have light. So even in your voice, the sweetiness of your voice, it sounds like somebody who doesn't have too many light troubles.
Not at all.
But listen, in this part of the world, don't we just do everything by ourselves? Individuals or residents rather even fix their own roads. So I mean, if you're talking power, there are generators, the only problem is our pockets, because we have to buy petrol. So that's if you use petrol generators, right. And then the ones who don't and that use what's it called, diesel power generators, have to spend money to buy diesel, which we know how much it costs these days. So it's terrible.
This petrol issue, when subsidy was removed before it came back in whatever form it is in now, right? One of the biggest joys of my life was that my neighbors were now too broke. Everybody was assessing their pockets before they
You
went to
have
buy
to.
fuel for
You
their
have to.
generators.
It's
It was
necessary.
the quietest time I'd experienced.
There you go.
5 generators would just come on and they would be drilling on my head. And I was thinking, oh my God. Now, some people have decided, I'm still rich enough to afford, so like 2 generators will still come on.
But they don't stay on all night long.
They do. Some of them do.
Yes, it sounds like we have about the same sort of neighbors. I have one wicked neighbor, and I'm saying this to you because I know you're listening in. Sir, you are a wicked neighbor. First of all, I believe somebody should be investigating how you are able to power your generator from 8 p.m. at night till 4 a.m. the next morning.
Habits.
You are
Stephen.
both. No.
Habits.
This is not about habits.
Habits.
You are both wicked
Exactly.
and I suspect morally deficient. Because why?
Stephen, jealousy. Jealousy is not a good color on you.
I don't care. I don't have lights too.
Stop hating on your neighbor. How about Stephen? Stop hating on your. Listen, and that your neighbor is just where he is doing what he's doing and not bothering about anything, any care in the world. And here you are hating on him.
To be honest, I can't blame him. When you've got small children in your house, you need to find a way to help them to cope.
There you go.
As an adult, I can sort out the heat. I might grumble. I might wake up. I might be surly and bad.
It's worse if you have a newborn.
Oh, that child will scream at you.
There you go.
So.
Anyway, so
Yes.
gentleman and lady, how's the new life?
It's you who ask because you're
Answer
about
the
to come
question.
into a new life.
Welcome to your new dispensation, David Chid.
By the way, I mean, I may as well just burst the bubble for you guys. David is coming up on the midday show.
Yeah!
And the crowd goes wild.
Smack in the middle, all right, smack in the middle, where I'll get a better view. I have the perfect vantage point at this point in time, just so y'all know. So my eyes are going to be on all of y'all. Yes.
So what do we have coming up on the midday show today?
On the midday show, the conversation, which has been the biggest the entire weekend, which of course you both touched on a little bit of on Now Breakfast, is what's still going to continue, because I reckon that's going to stay on the minds of Nigerians for a while, until, as with everything else in this part of the world, blows over. And it will blow over, because for all intents and purposes, it's just it just feels like we can only talk. It's heartbreaking for all intents and purposes, but that's pretty much it. So yeah, that's going to form the crux of the conversation, mostly on your take, which is in a few clicks, by the way. Then, of course, we are going to be touching on the affirmative action, and some group of women want Mr. President to set it in motion, because,
Mr. President, how far?
because as yet, it's still hanging somewhere. So, yeah, we're going to touch on that, and then some. So, yeah, stay tuned.
There you have it. A new dispensation here on Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos, and it's essentially, we're coming down to our time, top of the hour, 10 o'clock news, but Stephen and Nell are telling you ciao ciao ciao.
See you tomorrow.
Bella ciao, bella ciao.
Sayonara.
There you got it. But look, I'm sticking around to bring you the news at the top of the hour. Now Breakfast returns first thing tomorrow morning, 5:45 a.m.
Connect with us now via our social media channels. Facebook.com/RadioNow953FM.
We're on Twitter too. Connect with us there and get involved.
At Radio Now 953FM. 953FM. Like what we do? Share it on your socials and tell everyone.
Want to see some more of us? Head over and meet us on Instagram at